Hello, people. Welcome back to the OCM Botcast, the original content movement Botcast. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. You know that I am, as usual. Yes, we are back with the typically formatted show. So this is episode 41, and this episode is called Choosing Signals. So if you don't know, choosing signals is honestly, I'm not sure about this, but I think it's a term that probably originated in the black community, because it seemed like black content creators would say choosing signals, white content creators will say IOIs or indicators of interest, but generally basically choosing signals or IOIs are signals that women give to guys to convey to them that they find them attractive or are interested in them and would like them to make an approach. And so with this episode, we're going to dive into the choosing signal phenomenon and try to figure out the science behind it with my 5 minutes of research, as I tend to do. But also I'm going to go on a pretty lengthy rant about pretty much every significant time I believe that I was getting choosing signals throughout my life. And so I would like you guys to listen and sort of chime in. Do you think it was a choosing signal or was I overthinking it? So it's going to be pretty interesting. But other than that, we got the typical news, TOD, comments, etc., etc. Now I know it's about. Summer is almost over, and I haven't really given much of an update on Robot Music 9003. I am currently working on it, but admittedly over the summer, I got a little lackadaisical. I was enjoying the sun a little bit too much. I was just really working out a lot, going to the gym. But recently I started stepping up my production game again, and I'm writing again, and I got songs written, etc. But I foresee the album being done by the end of the year, as long as I stay consistent and focused. But that's where we are, and I'm going to start uploading some of the things that I've finished so far onto Patreon, as far as like some of the beats and things like that, to sort of just give those guys something a little bit extra for financially supporting the ship. So make sure you guys go and subscribe to the Patreon. Great things are coming there very soon. Make sure you hit the like button, and let's get right into this awesome episode. So first we have the news. Okay, so the news for today is about the Donald Trump charges or indictments, criminal cases. Donald Trump got jailed and got a mugshot. So if you don't know, Donald Trump, former president of the United States, is going through some legal issues right now. I believe one of the issues is because he's accused of instigating a coup d'etat on the January 6th incident. And also, I think he's been accused of tampering with the election, voter fraud or something like that. So we're going to look at this article on Politico and just try to figure out exactly what's happening. I got a little bit more interested in this when they released the Trump mugshot. And, I made a video why I'm voting for Donald Trump. Now, maybe I won't be able to vote for him because he'll be locked up or something like that. But we'll see. I'm seeing some people say that he might be in serious trouble. And then I'm seeing some people say that all of this is pretty much a distraction. Like, they don't have a strong enough case against him to actually stop him from running for president. But, this is one of those situations where you can look at it in two different ways. And it's been like this for years now, because you have these different perspectives on what's going on in the world. And so on one side, people are looking at it like, Trump, he instigated the potential insurrection and tried to overthrow the government. And then some people are like, nah, he really didn't. And then as far as like the cases themselves, some people are legitimately worried that this might actually stop him from hopefully becoming president of the United States again. And then some people are saying that this is more like a distraction, like a desperation tactic. Kind of like how when he became president, they kept talking about the Russian collusion with Putin and all that. And then it turned out to be a big nothing. So some people I'm hearing are saying that this is all just a distraction. They have no hope of actually stopping him. And so some people are potentially going to become emboldened by this because, and again, this goes back to how you look at things. If you think about it, what if he's being specifically targeted because they see him as a threat to the goals and the aims of the shadow government or the elites or the global, right? So, but then again, it could be, he really did something. He really did something wrong. He needs to be investigated. He needs to be taken to court, whatever. But my concern is that you definitely do not want it to be a case of the former because it just shows how corrupt our government really is. But let's look into the specifics of this article. Tracking the Trump criminal cases. A definitive guide to the key players and legal risk in the four criminal probes. Excuse me. The four criminal probes of Donald Trump. For the first 234 years of the nation's history, no American president or former president had ever been indicted. That changed this year. Former President Donald Trump has been charged in 4 criminal cases over a 4.5-month span. In New York, he faces 34 felony counts in connection with hush money payments to a porn star. In Florida, he faces 40 felony counts for hoarding classified documents and impeding efforts to retrieve them. In Washington, D.C., he faces 4 felony counts for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And in Georgia, he faces 13 felony counts for his election interference in that state. So, as this has been said in this article, no American president or former president had ever been indicted. And see, that's why this is so worrying to me. And when people come up with the quote unquote conspiracy that the shadow government has it out for Trump, I mean, when you look at everything and you connect the dots, and like I always say, I was never a Trump supporter. I just thought it was funny when he became president and how butthurt it made people. But when I seen how the entire mainstream media machine went against him, I knew something wasn't right. How does a man become president of the United States, but all of the most popular media outlets and news outlets are aggressively going against him? It didn't make sense. And I was like, it really showed me clearly that portion of the media, the mainstream media, is controlled, because there's simply no way there isn't like at least some division of opinion and perspective. Again, this guy cannot become president of the United States and damn near the entire mainstream media is against him. That was very suspicious to me. And then you look at now how he's the first president or former president to be indicted. And what bothers me about this, and I'm not saying that presidents should be above the law, but I'm willing to bet that he's not, if he did anything, he's not the first president that was caught up in a scandal or might have bended the rules or something, and then they were just pretty much let off. And see, the thing about that is, it's a bad look for the country when a president or a former president is going to jail and has a mugshot. That's a terrible look, because it's kind of like, you ever seen The Godfather when Michael Corleone is confronting his brother, I think Fredo, and he was like, never take sides with anyone else against the family, ever. And it's like basically saying that no matter what's going on internally, we never turn against each other in favor of someone outside of the circle. And the United States is a circle of sorts, definitely, right? And that's why typically you don't see stuff like this, where even if our presidents or leaders do something wrong, a lot of times they're not going to be held fully accountable because, quite frankly, the way it would make us look weaker. It would make us look disorganized. You've elected a criminal to the highest state, the highest status of your country. So again, I'm sure there were other presidents who could have been targeted in a similar way. But what's so suspicious about this to me is that, again, Trump is a very special case because I've never seen a president that was so specifically targeted and just basically slayed on a daily basis by the mainstream media. But let's continue. So this talks about the January 6th insurrection case. In the 2 months between Election Day in 2020 and January 6, 2021, Trump mounted a wide-ranging campaign to subvert Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election. Trump and his advisors spread false information about voter fraud, urged Republican state officials to undermine the results in states that Biden won, assembled false slates of electors, and pressured Mike Pence, the vice president, to unilaterally toss out the legitimate results. The effort culminated on January 6 when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol and disrupted the peaceful transfer of power. Federal prosecutors led by special counsel Jack Smith have charged Trump with 4 federal crimes stemming from his attempts to derail the transfer of power. Now, when you look at this, it's always 2 sides to every story. You can look at this in 2 different ways. Now, let's say that there was no voter fraud whatsoever, right? And Trump was spreading false information. Like, let's say that is true. Then is there a strong case for, say, him inciting an insurrection? Because now I don't remember all the specifics of that day. Now, I do remember the mob storming the Capitol. I do remember all that. But the one thing I remember Trump was saying that he tweeted out to his followers was what, like peaceful protest, or so. Like it wasn't like he was saying "fuck it all up," right? Drag them out into the street and hang them up, rip their balls off, behead them. And so what I'm saying is it really a crime to spread false information on the basis that you happen to believe it based on evidence that was presented to you, or based on what you might think or something might have happened to make you think but believe that? And see, that's again, we're looking at it from the perspective of there was no voter fraud. My question is it a crime to say it, to believe that there was, and to try to make efforts to let it be known? Because the thing is, if there was significant voter fraud and you believe that, why wouldn't you try to have the election overturned? And so that's why I question if there isn't an argument to say that he has a right to make that move, if he because again, why wouldn't you? Why, if you believe that's the case, why wouldn't you? Now, you might be wrong, but I think in that scenario, the key is how much did you instigate the escalation of chaos in that situation? Because if you say, well, there was voter fraud, they stole the election, and your supporters get rowdy over it, how much of that is your fault in terms of, because again, if you believe it, you should say it. But I think you're crossing the line when you say drag them out, kick the doors in, drag them out slit the throats, tear it all down. To me, that's when you're crossing that line. But let's look at it from the other side. What if there was voter fraud? And see, this is why this situation is scary to me. Because when you look at it from the other perspective, let's say there was voter fraud. And then you look at all that is happening here, where Trump is pleading and telling the world there was voter fraud. You know, overturn the elect, like, and nobody of significance is listening. Because this is the scenario that we all should hope is not the case. I hope that this is not what is happening here. So let's continue. Status, indictment. So it says status, indictment, trial, verdict, appeal dropped. Man, he has a lot of shit on his plate right now. So it says Smith's January 6th investigation followed the work of the House Select Committee on the January 6th attack, which voted in December 2022 to refer Trump along with lawyer John Eastman to the Justice Department for prosecution. A Washington grand jury met for months and heard testimony from many former Trump aides and officials in the Trump White House, including Pence. On August 1st, 2023, the grand jury approved an indictment against Trump, charging him with an extraordinary conspiracy that threatened to disenfranchise millions of Americans. So this is a scary situation to me, because if he is right, you got to understand how bad this is. You have to understand how bad and wicked this is. But if he's wrong, like I said before, I only question, did he really do enough to warrant this kind of reaction? So it says charges. Trump has been charged with 4 crimes in the investigation. 2 relate to the disruption of Congress certification of the electoral vote on January 6th. 1 alleges a scheme to defraud the United States through a sustained effort to impede the collection, counting, and certification of votes in the 2020 election. And the 4th charge accuses Trump of a conspiracy to deprive citizens of a right secured under federal law, specifically the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. And the thing is, the reason why I say this is scary is that, hold on, give me 1 second. That's what that damn sound. I kept hearing a beep. But the reason why I say this is scary to me is that what this is basically saying is that if you even come forward and imply, insinuate that there was voter fraud, like, again, let's say that there was voter fraud, that there's a shadow government rigging the elections and still and putting in their puppet politicians, right? Like just conspiracy tinfoil hat mode. If what this is basically saying, if you're in a prominent position like Trump and you know this is happening and you come forward, this is what you have to deal with. Because just by you insinuating that this is occurring, they're going to come right after you. I mean, obviously, but it's like the weight in which they can come after you just based off you saying. So it's like, what can you do? If they did take let's say they did, what could you realistically do when they can just say, oh, you're spreading false information, we're going to charge you with this and that. We're going to charge you with 1 felony count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, right? 1 felony count of conspiracy against rights. Like that's what's worrying about it, is that if that's what's happening, you even coming forward and saying it's happening is like turning a gun to your own head. That's very worrying. And so let's look at strengths of the case. Trump's effort to subvert the election were extensive, well documented, and largely in public view. He and his allies spread lies about voter fraud and stoked the protests that led to the January 6th attack. Now, I think that's true, but again, if he believes it, then how much of a crime can you really say that it is? That's how I would look at it. Many of the top aides in Trump's administration testified to the grand jury, giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. Pence, who resisted Trump's pressure to try to annul the election results on January 6th, was the most notable witness. Others included Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, and his senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller. So his gang snitched on him basically. But my thing is just this: what were the specifics of what they were saying? They're saying that giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. But see, the thing about this is that, like I said, what are they specifically telling them? Are they telling them that Trump knew this was bullshit, but he was like, we have to force this situation? Because if you're in the inner circle, and that means you can see what Trump is seeing, and you can see how, like, the flow of information. So what did he see? What was happening around him to make him believe there was voter fraud? Because I think this is very important, because if his inner circle are telling investigators that there was really no reason for him to believe this, that it seemed to me that he was just pulling this out of his ass because he was butthurt that he lost, then that's going to strengthen the case against him. But again, what if you're in the inner circle? What did he see that make him believe this? Because the thing is, if he is seeing things and information is coming to him that there could be voter fraud, then that brings the argument, why wouldn't he say something? If he believes it, why wouldn't he? So this says weaknesses of the case. Trump may argue that his statements about the 2020 election were protected by the First Amendment, or that in challenging the election, he was merely relying on the advice of lawyers. That's I don't know. Trump do better than that. But so this one says, a president seeking to impede the peaceful transfer of power is unprecedented in American history, and the attempt to hold him legally accountable is similarly unprecedented. Some of the legal theories that prosecutors may rely on, like applying the conspiracy against rights statute to the context here, may raise novel issues that have rarely been tested in court. Yeah, because like they said before, this is something that we've never seen before. A president being charged like this, or a former president being charged like this. So and like they say right here, conspiracy against rights. Like, how are you going to argue for that against what I was talking about earlier? If he believed it, then why wouldn't he say? Like, to me, it's that simple. If he really believed it, why wouldn't he say something? But if you say something, then all these charges come against you, and how is that fair? Okay, who could pardon him? All right, we're gonna skip over this. This is this article. Goddamn, this is well done. Shit, Politico. Let me bookmark this. Look at this. This is fancy. They got the whole Trump's legal team, key players. Goddamn. Okay, so let's go into the Georgia election interference case. Trump's efforts to overturn his loss in the 2020 election were perhaps most aggressive in the state of Georgia. Multiple recounts confirmed that President Joe Biden narrowly prevailed in the race for the state's 16 electoral votes. But Trump and his allies spread lies about voter fraud, urged Georgia officials and state lawmakers to reverse Biden's win, and plotted to send fake electors to Washington. On January 2nd, 2021, Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find 11,780 votes, the number needed to overcome Biden's victory. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis charged Trump and 18 of his allies for these efforts, alleging a wide-ranging criminal enterprise. So I saw some, okay, now just to counter this, let's play devil's advocate. There's a whole documentary called, I think, 2,000 Mules or something like that, where it's showing video evidence of people stuffing ballots or stuffing like ballot boxes, like people on bicycles pulling up and just dumping, like one individual just dumping votes into these I guess the ballot boxes and whatnot. And it's a pretty interesting documentary. Again, I think it's called 2,000 Mules, but how do I know if it's true or not? What if those same guys were just stuffing the ballot boxes with Trump votes, right? But it's an interesting documentary. I think I'm gonna go back and look at it again soon too, though. Now that all this is kind of flared up. But I also saw somebody talking about this on the Joe Rogan podcast. I forgot the specifics of like the guy's background, but you know, he's dug deep into these charges and whatnot. And he was talking about this situation exactly. Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find 11,780 votes, the number needed. And so the way he explained it on the Joe Rogan podcast was that Trump received information that there was voter fraud. And so he called this guy and was like, find the voter fraud. Find it. Like he put I know it, find it. And so look at how this is worded, right? Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find. Now look, it says, quote, that they took one word. They took one word out of everything that he said to this guy and use that as the basis of this argument for this article. As impressed with this article as I am, I do think that it's probably biased against Trump, because look at that. They took one fine, right? Because I feel like they're using the word to sort of strengthen their argument. Like they're taking the word and then forming the argument around it. But from the way that guy described it on the Joe Rogan podcast was that it was like Trump received the information of voter fraud and he called Brad Raffensperger and said, I know it. I received the information that is there. Find it. So it's like, again, if you believe it, if you believe there's fraud, why wouldn't you say something about it? But just by saying it, you see, and that's why this situation is so iffy to me. So status, Willis opened a criminal investigation in February 2021. She summoned many of Trump's top allies before a so-called special grand jury, which had the power to investigate crimes but not to approve criminal charges. In the summer of 2023, Willis presented her evidence to a regular grand jury, which approved the 98-page indictment of 90-page. Okay. So it says charges: 1 count of violating the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of false statements in writings, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements in writings, 1 count of filing false documents, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. The indictment accuses 19 named defendants of criminal wrongdoing and contains a total of 41 state law felony charges. 13 of those felonies are leveled against Trump. The most serious is an alleged violation of the state's Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as RICO. Damn, he got a RICO charge? Shit. That law allows prosecutors to package together disparate crimes if those crimes advance a single corrupt enterprise. So it says, strength of the case. Trump's efforts to undo the Georgia results were based on blatant falsehoods and were largely conducted out in the open. His phone call to Raffensperger was recorded. So blatant falsehoods, something that I would have to investigate further. Because again, it's like everything here is basically saying that any information that he got to believe this is false, 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 false. And I naturally just have to question that. Okay, out of 20 pieces of information that he received, and I'm just throwing out a number, I would be surprised if every single thing was false. Maybe 10, maybe 15, but that's where I would be suspicious, because for every charge here, they're saying that anything that he thought, anything that might have had him believe that there was voter fraud was absolutely false. And I have a hard time believing that. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken immunity deals and have agreed to cooperate with Willis. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken. Now, see, that sounds very strong against him. But then it's like, did they do it in cooperation with him, or did they do this independently? That's what if I had to question it, that's what I would throw out there. But if they did it in connection with him, he approved it, or he told them to do that, that's bad. That's bad. Even if you're in a situation like this, like let's say there was voter fraud, you don't want to use underhanded tactics to prove it or to get things to swing your way, because that's only going to be used as ammunition against you later. Weaknesses of the case. A local prosecutor charging a former president with election interference is unprecedented in American history. Trump may claim he is immune from being prosecuted for actions he took while he was still president. Trump might argue that his statements about the Georgia results are protected by the First Amendment, or that he lacked criminal intent because he genuinely believed he won the election. So that's exactly what I've been saying this entire time. He lacked criminal intent because he genuinely believed he won the election. If he believed it, then why can't he say that there was voter fraud, that he saw evidence or believed he had reason to believe that there was voter fraud? That's the main thing with me. That's the main thing. And so here they're showing the prosecutor, Fannie Willis. I think she's also the prosecutor in the Young Thug YSL case. You know what? This might be the, I don't know how this whole legal thing works, but what if this is a big enough of a distraction to where Young Thug might get off? But I digress. Okay, and so it goes on to talk about the classified documents case and the hush money. Now, the hush money one, that's just, dude, throw that in the garbage. Like, to me, that just makes the whole situation look even more desperate, right? That's come on. Are we gonna go to goddamn Bill Clinton getting a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky? Are we gonna go back to that? And right, like, dude, come on, like little sex bullshit, sex scandals. That's weak. That's weak shit. But the classified documents, Georgia election interference, all that, pretty serious business. But we'll stop there. But it's like I said before, man. If Trump legitimately broke the law and had malicious intent, if his attitude was, hey, fuck the system, I'm taking it, then he deserves everything that's coming his way. But the main things that bother me, and it all stems from me connecting those earlier dots from, again, how the mainstream media and the powers that be just seem to be collectively against him. You know, I take that, and then we look now. The thing that worries me the most is that it seems like you can't even say or come forward and say that you believe that there was voter fraud, because now instantly all of this is gonna come again. All these problems come raining down on you, and it's like if he did it, fuck him. But if he didn't, damn. Because how do you win against that? How do you win in a situation where coming forward to talk about potential fraud is lining you up for this kind of heat? It's very, very worrying to me. But, you know, we'll see. Maybe the charges will drop. Maybe some will stick. It seems like a lot of people believe that I'm putting my tinfoil hat back on. The shadow government, the elites, all this is an attempt to get in the way of him potentially becoming president again. And so perhaps they feel so threatened by this that they're like, fuck it, we're charging the cannons up and we got to take this guy out. Because, like I said before, I'm voting for Trump. If he's able to get in position to even be voted for, I'm voting for Trump. And I'm seeing more people, even black people, come back and change their opinion and mind about Trump and say, I'm voting for Trump. Like, I forgot the name of the guy, but I think there's a rapper or producer who had tweeted out the exact, basically saying the same shit that I was saying. I'm voting for Trump. And I think that the last 4 years have been the last 4 years have been terrible. The last 4 years have been terrible in terms of how many things that got worse. And you guys know, I laid out just a handful of shit. I laid out just like I could have added like probably 10 more things to that list. I just picked out the ones that stood out to me. I could have added about 10 more. And I think during this last 4 years, so many people have felt the decline of America. They felt things getting worse. It affected them. It affected them financially. It's affected their livelihood. It's affected their overall well-being. And that's the sort of thing to make you think twice. That I think that so much has happened in the last 4 years. Because you got to think, Trump already won once. What has happened in the last 4 years that would make more people vote for Biden over Trump or anyone else over Trump? Because this, look, Biden had his chance, bravo. But I think this has been a horrible showing for him. I think even the people that voted for him and believed in him, I'm sure a lot of them are like, nah, it's not working out, And so if you look at it like that, it makes sense. Again, tinfoil hat. It makes sense why, quote unquote, they would want to leverage any sort of assault or charges or power or attacks against him as possible, just to prevent him potentially becoming president again. Because I think that it is possible. Because like I said, these last 4 years have done nothing but made Trump. It made this last 4 years done nothing but made Trump look better. And just by comparison of one term to the next, you can't deny that. You can't deny that the 4 years under Trump was at least better than the 4 years under Biden. And that might be enough to where he might win again. But that was the news for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I mean, this whole thing right here deserves a Botcast to itself. So maybe I'll line that up. I like talking about politics. But next, we're going to get to the main topic. So stay tuned. Okay, so we are back and I got a main topic for you guys. So, as I said, and as you can see, this episode is called Choosing Signals, discussing the phenomenon of women giving men signals, various body language signals to show that they find them attractive. And, you know, I think one of my most memorable experiences with this was probably definitely with that one cashier girl that was just all on my dick. just all on my dick. But that was a great experience because it confirmed a lot of the choosing signals that, you know, I've seen people, more experienced people talk about in their videos and things like that. Like step by step, everything that she was doing, it was like, damn, like it really works like that. The eye contact, proximity, making small talk, the light touching, I mean, everything. But, you know, it's funny. I think the first content creator that I ever saw talking about choosing signals. Now, I'm not saying that he was the first ever. I'm saying he was the first that I heard of or I saw talking about it, was a guy, a content creator named Player Supreme. Now, he died years ago, but he was like this big black guy, and he did a critique of one of Kent's videos, basically just slayed that boy. But he was trying to give him advice too. But he was one of the first content creators that I saw actually talk about this. And I remember the way he would talk about it. He would always say, girls do the choosing. He would always say that girls do the choosing. When you understand the game, girls do the choosing. And so what he was saying was that, you know, oftentimes men, we see ourselves as the hunters, as the pursuers and whatnot. But the reality is nothing is going to happen unless the girl opens the door for us. So we can do all that running around, asking out 100 girls, 200 girls, but nothing happens unless the girl looks at us and says, okay, I accept. And not only that, oftentimes they all like it, depending on the situation, right? Maybe not in a hectic public place like in a grocery store or something where people just passing each other by, but in environments where people have time to kind of settle in and get the lay of the land and look around and see who is who. In those types of situations, girls have the opportunity to look around and look at guys and see what they like. And then sometimes they'll start exhibiting behaviors and adjusting their body language in order to signal to that guy, hey, I want you to come talk to me. You know, because you got to think about it. Most girls do not want to be the assertive one when it comes to the mating dance. Now, you know, I've talked about this plenty of times. You could say it's biology. You could say they just have so many options. You could say it's ego. But the bottom line is most girls just don't want to be assertive. But at the same time, I think the reality is that sometimes girls like a guy and the guy either doesn't notice them or just doesn't feel compelled to make the first move. And I always say this because I know a lot of girls, they'll shame guys or make fun of guys for not wanting to approach them first and shit like that. But I always say girls do not want to live in a world where guys approach every girl they find attractive. I don't care, like really, I don't care how alpha, sigma, omega you think you are. You know, no guy is asking out every single attractive girl that he sees. And so because of this, I think it forces girls to have to take some sort of action when it comes to dating or trying to get men. Because A guy might not make the first move for any number of reasons. So how do you ensure that he does? You give him clues, you give him hints, you give him indicators of interest. And as undateable as I am, I do believe that I've gotten choosing signals at times as well. But I think most of the times, the most clearest choosing signals came from the least attractive women. And that's a trend that I see as well, where whenever we have this conversation, I see guys say it all the time. They'll say, oh, yeah, some girls will approach you first. Some girls will talk to you first, but it's never going to be the girl that you like, or it's rarely going to be a girl that you like. And like I always say, I think that who approaches who has more to do with value than gender. Gender plays a role in testosterone, estrogen, and all that. But, when I look at myself, like most people will rate me like a 5 or a 6. Most of the girls that gave me choosing signals were probably like a 3 or a 4, like, somewhere around there. And so, as you would imagine, if you're a guy that's an 8 or a 9, you probably get more choosing signals in general, but also choosing signals from more attractive women than a guy like myself. But again, if you're an 8 or a 9 as a dude, you're probably not getting choosing signals from 10s. The most attractive women don't have to do anything, really, unless it's like a celebrity or something. But let's get to the science of it, or at least the dude bro of it. Let's start with, let me see. Hold on, let me pull up an article here. I always try to come with some knowledge. Okay, so this is from Psychology Today. The many subtle ways women signal romantic interest. It's often women, not men, who initiate the first approach. So, as Player Supreme would say, rest in peace, girls do the choosing. So, men are often taught to make the first move, push for the first kiss, and initiate ever higher levels of sexual intimacy with the woman. This type of pressure to make the first move can feel onerous, but research shows that it is women who typically signal whether a man can make an approach in the first place, initiating the entire process. Drawing from work on mating interactions among non-humans, primarily birds, researchers in the 80s and 90s documented early courtship behaviors in a series of creative observational studies conducted in bars, dance clubs, and other places where people meet. These researchers carefully tracked the non-verbal strategies used to signal sexual interest. They consistently noted that women signaled men who interested them, helping to ensure their approach. What are the non-verbal behaviors that women engage in to signal their interest in a particular man? Here was a typical scenario. A woman walks into a bar with some of her friends. She engages in a long, steady scan around the room, ultimately fixing her gaze on the man she finds attractive. Gaze is important here and a key component of signaling interest. The woman maintains an extended gaze at the man until he notices her. She smiles, then she breaks the gaze, returns the gaze again, smiles, and again breaks the gaze. A woman interested in a man then might primp or self-groom, fixing her hair a bit, adopting an open body language, arms away from the body, or starting to orient her body to face him. So this makes me think back to a story that I'm going to get into later. But I remember this was when I was going to get my GED. I was in class and there was like this cute light-skinned girl that was in the same class. And she got to the class late and she was sitting in the front of the class, but facing the rest of us, right? Because there was just no seat for her. And so I remember when she sat down, I felt somebody just staring at me, but I didn't look. And, later she had came up to me and basically admitted it, told me why she was staring at me, right? And, but that's like an example of what they're talking about here. Now, the thing about me is that I never catch this. Because the thing is, now I understand how the eye games work, but my thing is just this. Unless I have a reason to look at you, I'm probably not going to look at you. And so what I'm saying is, I think that guys who are going to be receptive and have an eye out for eye contact, they know the game and they're actively playing the game. So if you understand choosing signals, when you go out into the world, you're probably going to be making eye contact with girls and just seeing what type of eye contact they give you. Do they give you like normal, like a quick look, like a normal person? I said normal person, but do they give you a quick look, which could mean that y'all just happen to meet eyes. Just because y'all look at each other for a second doesn't mean anything. But if you guys look at each other and like the article says, and she engages in a long, steady scan around the room and fixes her gaze on a man she finds attractive, gaze is important here. You got to know the difference, basically. And I think the thing about me is because I've been going my own way for so long, not really, I'm just not really in tune with these things. Anytime I catch it, it's unintentional. Because like I said, sometimes you just happen to meet eyes with somebody, right? But I think, like, who knows how many girls might have been doing the eye games with me and I didn't know, because I don't look for shit like that. When I'm out, I'm in my own world. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not just completely aloof, right? I live around the hood. So I'm aware of my surroundings and who's like around me. But the thing is, with girls, you don't have to worry about girls attacking you or robbing you. So I don't really have an eye out for them in terms of like worrying about what they could do to me or something like that. And since I'm not actively dating or trying to date, I don't look for eye contact and shit. And so I think it'll be interesting to sort of, maybe one day go out and actually like look for that. Because I remember one time I was in the car with this guy I used to hang out with, and he told me that a girl was looking at me, and I was like, what? I would have never known, because I just don't, like, I'm just not in tune with that shit, because I'm not actively trying to play these little dating games. And because really, it's a fucking game. Like, I get it, but it's all a fucking game. And I think that if you're really focused on yourself and your mission, whatever it is you're doing, like if you're at the gym or the grocery store and shit like that, you're not gonna notice shit like this anyway. Because I think to a certain extent, you have to be actively engaging with these little body language mating ritual games to even notice shit like that. And I've never been in the mode of trying to play these games. Once he approaches, as he almost always does, both orient their bodies toward each other, and the woman may engage in other nonverbal behaviors, such as palming, displaying an open wrist and palm, self-touching, such as a breast graze, or exposing her neck, perhaps by leaning back or canting her head. I never get this far. So all this is just completely unknown to me. I never get this far. Once you know to look for these behaviors, you can see them all the time. Two newly acquainted people who are sexually interested in each other will show increasing synchrony in their gestures and movements. Light touching, especially by men, smiling, leaning forward, and head tilting. Women may even notice blatantly that they find someone attractive by observing themselves self-grooming a little when an attractive man enters the room. Again, these are things that I oftentimes just wouldn't pick up on because I'm not really looking that hard. Like, when I look at girls, it's usually from behind, right? I'm a butt guy, so, like, don't get me wrong. If there's like a girl with a nice body walking in front of me, like when I'm at the gym and I get that opportunity to see the girl in the shorts, I'm going to look then, right? But that's not really like a mating ritual game. That's just like enjoying the eye candy, right? Research on other cultures finds similar behaviors. An eyebrow flash combined with a smile was a common signal in a range of cultural backgrounds, from the Balinese to Papuans, French, and Wakio Indians. What's really intriguing, however, is that although most women could describe some aspect of this signaling process, men often were unaware that they had in fact been signaled by the woman they approached, thinking instead that they simply had the initiative to approach an attractive woman. Trained observers have been able to predict to a startlingly high degree of accuracy the outcomes of interactions between women and men based on women's nonverbal signaling behaviors alone. One of the best predictors of who would be approached was signaling frequency. High signaling women of average attractiveness were much more likely to be approached than low signaling beautiful counterparts. In addition, the rate of signaling on the part of women was strongly correlated with how much interest they elicited in the men. Some men mistakenly approached a woman who had not signaled them, but they would typically shut down quickly. Now if you don't know, there's a big argument, not gonna say argument, but there's this ongoing debate in the manosphere about code approach versus choosing signals. And this is exactly why this debate goes on. It's because with choosing signals, the likelihood of success is greater because the girl has already indicated, she's already indicated that she might be attracted to you. She's already giving you some attention. And see, I think the reason why choosing signals can be so reliable is that what you have to understand is that girls know all these little dynamics that are going on. They understand that men will take any little bit of attention and mistake that for the woman being interested in them. That's why a lot of times you'll see women acting very cold and you'll see women acting very cold in public. You know, you might call it resting bitch face. They'll have on the headphones. One thing that I always see is when there's a pretty girl in the grocery store by herself, she's always on the phone. And it's like her being on the phone is like a force field that keeps guys from trying to talk to her. And especially if it's a dude on the phone, but sometimes you don't know because they might not have it on speakerphone or something like that. But girls have all these strategies for keeping men away from them. And so that's why choosing signals can be so reliable. Because if a woman is giving you really any kind of attention, not always, but for a woman to give a man attention, and depending on the context, you know, a lot of times it can mean that she's at least somewhat interested in you. But obviously the problem with relying on choosing signals is that you'll miss out on the girls that are not signaling attraction to you. Because, I mean, it's kind of like, look at me, for instance, right? I've seen countless women that I found attractive, and I haven't spoken to one of them. And if they were paying attention to me, they would probably think that I had no interest in them whatsoever. Like, I'm very good at playing the aloof role, or really just staying focused, right? Like, I see them, but, you know, again, I'm not actively trying to date, so I don't really do anything about it. So what I'm saying is, you know, when I look at myself and how easily I can sort of hide my attraction to the girls that I see, you know, girls can do the exact same thing. So just because a girl isn't signaling to you doesn't mean that she doesn't find you attractive. And so depending on, that's the problem with depending on choosing signals, is that you don't get those opportunities with girls who either don't signal in general or just didn't happen to be signaling to you at that time. Now, of course, the issue with code approaching is that, you know, you got to deal with a lot of rejection. The fact is, you're going to make a lot more women uncomfortable, because let's be real, a lot of girls really don't like dealing with men approaching them or hollering at them. A lot of women are bothered by it, depending on the guy, really. But, you know, it's a real thing. And just the overall energy expenditure of asking out dozens and hundreds of women and shit like that. But to each his own. Researchers describe these individuals as having poor decoding abilities. Women have an equally impressive array of nonverbal shutdown behaviors, such as leaning away, crossing their arms over their chest, avoiding eye contact. See, that's exactly what I'm saying. Avoiding eye contact. So they know all this is going on. So if you're walking around, you see an attractive girl, and you try to make eye contact, she'll just keep looking forward. And negative grooming behaviors such as picking one's teeth, the mirror opposite of signaling behaviors. Unfortunately, men often were worse at picking up rejection signals, judging them to be weaker forms of communication than women intended them to be. These field studies typically use evolutionary theory as a conceptual framework, so the focus tended to be on men and women's courtship behaviors. However, other researchers have found great similarity between the behaviors used by women signaling their sexual interest in men and women signaling their sexual interest in other women. There is a lack of more current research on signaling and flirting more generally, yet flirting is important for conveying initial interest in a potential partner, as well as maintaining interest in an established relationship. Men tend to view flirting as more sexual and instrumental than women do. Women tend to view flirting as more fun and relational. Current applications in this line of research have become narrower, focusing to a great extent on eye gaze as a metric of sexual interest versus romantic love. Neurophysiological research has found that mere eye contact with an attractive person activates reward-related brain areas and prompts approach. God damn. Flirting and expressing interest in initiating a relationship now rely heavily on written forms of communication in new digital technology environments. We may be spending ever-increasing hours meeting new people through our virtual worlds, but ultimately we connect face-to-face and rely on our nonverbal behaviors to convey far more than words alone can do. But I know what they're talking about here with this part. Neurophysiological research has found that mere eye contact with an attractive person activates reward-related brain areas and prompts approach. I felt that. Now, the whole prompts approach thing, but I definitely felt like that spark when I just happened to make eye contact with a girl I found attractive, which is very, 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 it's very rare, very rare. But when it does happen, I definitely feel like that small dopamine spike, like it's just like, I don't know, it's like a small pleasure explosion in the brain, just that split second, ooh, man. Like, I remember when I was at the gym and I needed a bench so I could bench press, so I went over to where most of the benches were, and I was dragging it back. And I remember as I was dragging it back, I had accidentally made eye contact with this cute white girl. And I remember, like, in that moment, it just, boom, like, I felt that activated reward center thing in my brain. But this was a more, like, scientific article, right? Psychology Today. Let's go to the Dude Bro article. Excuse me as I get a drink of water. Okay, so this article comes from The Art of Manliness. So now we're getting to the fun. This is from the men in the trenches. Okay, so let's dive right into this. So across animal species, males typically initiate mating, while women decide to accept or reject those advances. While we share this prototypical mating arrangement with other mammals, it's a bit more nuanced with us humans. Men are expected to make the overt first move, like saying hello, striking up a conversation, asking a woman out on a date, etc. But women, in fact, typically initiate this contact by subtly providing cues that such contact is welcome. In other words, women decide if and when men can initiate romantic advances. Men who don't understand this dynamic at best find themselves labeled as an awkward weirdo, and at worst become known as the creep who makes unwanted advances. And you know, this is one of the main reasons why you would never catch me cold approaching girls at the gym or something like that, because you probably do it. You'll do about 2 or 3 times before you develop a reputation. You know, either because really one thing I know is that when girls are there, like young pretty girls are there, that's typically when the place is crowded. So if you are going to talk to a girl at the gym, more than likely it's going to be around other people. And whether the other people see it and cast judgment, or whether you're just talking to the girl and she's not receptive and then she tells other people about it, you know, it could be, I can see how it could definitely snowball out of your control. Now, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here. It's not like you're going to be arrested or anything like that, but I'm sure you guys have seen like these clips of girls like recording guys, looking at them in the gym and shit like that. And some of it is just ridiculous. But let's keep going. Even when a man understands this dynamic, however, there's a good chance he just doesn't have a knack for picking up on the subtle social cues that indicate female interest. Rather than initiating unwanted sexual interest, this fella fails to make a move when a lady wants him to. Many a man out there has had the experience of a woman telling him, "I gave you so many signals. How did you not know I liked you?" Sometimes a guy gets lucky and finally clues into this interest because the gal is patient and persistent. But sometimes someone who could have been your one and only ends up being the one who got away. If you've had a hard time sussing out whether or not women are attracted to you and open to your advances, below we provide research-backed signs to look for. Signs a girl is attracted to you. You've probably read articles online where the author gives you a list of body language signals that women give off to let you know they're attracted to you. While it's easy to roll your eyes at lists like these, research suggests there's actually something to them. Psychologist Monica Moore spent a few months observing over 200 single women at parties, bars, clubs, and restaurants. From her observations, she found over 52 things women do when they're attracted to a man. They don't have to do all of them or in any particular order to indicate interest. Some women have their go-to flirty moves, though the more of these signals you see and the more often you see a woman display them, the more likely it is that she's attracted to you and will welcome your advances. Of the 52 signals, Moore saw these 12 most frequently. Smiling at you, shooting short glances your way, darting her eyes away when you look at her. But see, that's the thing. That's one that always confused me. Darting her eyes away when you look at her. Because sometimes people, you ever had like awkward eye contact where you're like, because there have been times where I was just looking around and I swear like I was not trying to make eye contact with the person, but we just happened to meet eyes. And then it's like, I'll do the eyes away, right? But it's not because I like you. It's just because I didn't mean to make eye contact with you. So I'm like, oh, damn. It's almost like bumping into somebody by accident, right? That's kind of how it feels. Making prolonged eye contact with you. Now, that's obvious. Running fingers through her hair, licking her lips, exposing her neck, tilting her head towards you, turning her seat towards you, lightly touching you on the arm or shoulder. That's the best one. I'll never forget that one. Laughing when you talk, caressing an object in her hands. That light touching one, oh my God. I only got that one time, and I never forgot it, man. Like that's like when it happened, like that was the moment of like, yeah, she liked me. Among the dozen above, the most common signals of female interest are smiles, direct eye contact, and or repeated glances towards and away from you. Important caveat, put these signals in context. Now, a socially inept boob of a guy will memorize a list like this, and anytime he sees a woman display any of these signals, he'll immediately assume that she's attracted to him sexually. Indeed, studies have shown that many men have a hard time interpreting social cues, particularly sexual ones. Such cues are complex and subtle. You have to make sure you interpret them within the context of a given situation. It's very similar to the way you achieve situational awareness in a tactical situation, which involves establishing baselines of what's normal and then looking for anomalies. What's true in war is true in love as well. If an attractive lady bank teller looks you in the eye and smiles at you, she's probably doing that because she's trying to show good customer service and not because she's open to you hitting on her. The baseline behavior in this situation is that all bank tellers look people in the eye, smile, and make friendly chit chat. So this is the whole problem with trying to flirt or trying to make a move on cashiers and women who work in the service industry, because it's their job to be nice to you. It's their job to do things like that. And so I know with me, I've had quite a few situations with like cashier girls. Now, only one was like super blatant, but then there were also some that were kind of suspect, where I might have assumed that she was flirting or wanted me to flirt back or something like that. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when it's their job to be nice to you. Like, I remember there was one girl, because I think this was years and years and years ago when I was around like 20 years old. But there was this one cashier girl, and she asked my mom about me because I had been in the store a few times. And I remember later I was telling my mom, I was like, girls don't even like me. And she was like, and she brought up that one cashier girl that was asking about me and shit. And, it's stuff like that. And even then, maybe she was just curious. Maybe that don't mean that she necessarily was attracted to me. So, Wait, where was I? The baseline behavior in this situation is that all bank tellers look people in the eye, smile, and make friendly chit chat. An anomaly would be if the bank teller lady displayed lots of flirty behavior, like touching her hair or touching her wrist nonchalantly. That would indicate possible interest. Likewise, if a woman at work touches your arm, don't automatically assume she wants to have your babies. She could just be super friendly and touchy-feely. That's her baseline behavior. But let's say a woman isn't super friendly and touchy-feely with people, but she is with you. Well, that's an anomaly that indicates possible attraction. Another important caveat, a one-time signal isn't an indefinite green light. Keep following the trail. Just as observing an anomaly in a tactical situation doesn't automatically mean there's a threat, an anomaly in the world of romantic social cues doesn't automatically mean a woman wants to sleep with you, marry you, or even go on a date with you. All it means is she has an initial attraction to you and is open to your making a first move. That could be a conversation, a dance, or you asking her out on a date. Nothing more. So you ask her for a phone number and ask her out on a date. On a date, you and she would get to know more about each other through conversation. If she likes what she hears and feels a rapport and attraction building, she'll continue to give you signals above. She'll also signal that she's open to a second date, and she might not even be. See, all right, we're never gonna get to this point. So, right? We are never gonna get there. So we can just skip that. So how to tell if she's not interested? Just as important as knowing what signs a woman displays when she's interested in you is knowing the body language cues that mean she's not interested in you. You don't want to be the guy who couldn't take the hint and is now being tweeted about with Me Too. In addition to documenting the signs that a woman was interested in a man, Moore's study also recorded the signs that she wasn't. If you approach a woman and she won't make any eye contact with you while you're trying to engage in polite small talk, she's not interested. If she turns away from you, rolls her eyes, yawns, or starts talking to somebody else, not interested. Don't assume she's playing hard to get. She's just not into you. And don't think you can sway her by talking yourself up or nagging her or doing whatever dumb PUA technique you read about from some blog post written in 2009. It won't work, and you'll just come off as desperate. You'll just come off as a desperate, creepy dude. All right, so let me see. Let's just go straight to the conclusion. So figuring out if a woman likes you is a tricky business. You'll likely make some faux pas in the process, as long as you act like a gentleman, not the weird milady kind. When making those initial dating moves, You shouldn't experience too much social awkwardness when you face rejection. Rejection. Be aware of the social cues women give off if they're attracted to you, but keep them in context. Finally, don't assume she's ready to go back to her place just because she signals attraction. Assume that her initial attraction simply means that she's open to you asking her out so she can get to know you better. Keep following the trail of signals to determine if and when you make your next move. Okay, so that was the article from The Art of Manliness. But yeah, all this stuff I pretty much already knew. This is just a standard choosing signal IOI guidebook. Things to look out for. Also, the importance of understanding that you don't want to misinterpret like friendly signals with flirtatious signals. But again, that's the difficulty of trying to deal with choosing signals in the first place, is that even though women are technically making the first move, they're not really taking a big risk because they always maintain plausible deniability. They don't really do anything to explicitly express attraction. You have to be the first one to escalate to that point of making things more intimate, more romantic, leading up to sex. So next, I'm going to be giving you the lists or different stories that I have regarding times I believed I was getting choosing signals and fucked it all up. So stay tuned. On the previous episode, I was talking about MGTOW and the truth of why men go their own way, and talking about how a lot of it has to do with the fact that some guys like myself never wanted to or never really wanted a relationship or to get married that badly to begin with. And that's why it's an easy path for us to walk. But during that episode, I was talking about choosing signals. I was talking about different times, or a recent time where a girl, I believe, was, giving me choosing signals. And if you guys don't know, choosing signals are it's kind of funny now that I think about it. People call it choosing signals. White people call it IOIs, or indicators of interest, whatever you want to call it. This is basically when girls are trying to get a man's attention and tell the man in a roundabout way that they're interested in them. So everybody knows that, generally speaking, men tend to be the aggressors when it comes to the initial contact or interactions towards escalating into, talking, dating, sex, and things like that. But it's known widely now that a lot of times women actually give off little subtle cues that they're interested in you even before you might even thought of making the move. And I think choosing signals as a concept is interesting to me, because I've heard some guys say that women do it subconsciously, like they do it without even realizing what they're doing. But I question that. Maybe sometimes, and maybe some of the signals they give off are more subconscious, but some of the things that girls do has to be I believe sometimes the things that they do are done consciously. Like they know what they're doing, and it's like, I'm gonna do this, and if he doesn't pick up on it, I'll just move on. I don't always think that it's just something that they do without realizing what they're doing. I think women are a lot more aware of themselves and what they want and what men want than we give them credit for. But I digress. The point that I want to make with this video is I want to talk about different times in my life where I believe I was getting choosing signals. And I want this to be kind of fun, right? So I want you guys to give me some feedback if you think the girl was choosing or not, or if it was just in my head. Because like I said, when girls give choosing signals or IOIs, it's even when they do these things, you could still misinterpret them as interest when it could have just been a coincidence, when they could just be a tease, etc. Or some girls are just very friendly. So, and that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it's a way for girls to get your attention without really taking a risk on their own behalf. So I'm going to talk about a few of the times where I believe I got choosing signals. But first, before I go into that, because obviously since I'm here, a 30-year-old virgin, I didn't do anything about it. So what is it? One of the reasons why I never acted on or never did anything in these situations, other than, of course, not prioritizing, not being in a state of thirst and desperation, desperately looking for a girlfriend in the first place. I think a big part of it was that I didn't have the confidence or the belief that I could attract the kind of women that I believe were giving me choosing signals. Now, I'm fairly sure I could fuck fat gorilla orc hoes. we all know that, but look, nobody wants that. But when it comes to the type of girls that I'm actually attracted to, I think that despite my growth and development into the awesome motherfucker that I am now, I still don't have any confidence in terms of girls that I liking me back. And I think that it makes sense because you at some point you have to get that validation. You have to have those experiences of, okay, I got this girlfriend who I was attracted to, or I had these sexual experiences. And I think without that, when I look back, it makes sense why I didn't act on it, other than just not prioritizing or not being in a state of looking for a girlfriend in the first place. But let me just go over some of these, right? So in fact, let's go back to like school days, right? This is way back when I'm in like middle school, high school, or something like that. Because this is something that me and a friend were talking about a while ago. But there was one girl who one day, like for some reason, she was desperately trying to hug me. And she was like one of the cool, not like, she wasn't hot or anything like that, but she was like one of those kind of like sexy project girls. Like super ghetto, super ratchet project girls. And she was just out of nowhere. She was like, give me a hug. This was like back in like middle school or some shit, right? And I think this is like the first time that I got choosing signals. This is probably the very first time, right? And I remember like the other guys being like, dude, just hug her. But in my mind, I just felt like this disgusting creep guy. And I didn't believe that the attention she was giving me could have been genuine. But it made me excited, And I remember, because it happened on a Friday, and I was thinking about it the whole weekend. I was like, wow, like, she wanted to hug me. And so I was expecting like the next week for it to continue. And just as quickly as it began, it ended. Like, she wasn't giving me that attention anymore. And in a way, I think this experience kind of fucked me up too, because what it did was it made me believe that even if a girl is giving me attention, she's probably just teasing me. And so to this day, I don't know if she was teasing me. I don't know if she was really interested. Like, it's hard to tell, because I really was like this weirdo kid in school. And you know how girls can be kind of cruel, where they think it's funny to give the weird guy attention or something like that, because it's like, it's the female equivalent of how guys try to like punk you or bully you or insult you and shit like that. Girls can do little stupid teasing shit like that just to try to get a reaction out of you. And I think that in my gut, I felt like that's what she was doing when it was all said and done. And I think that's part of the reason why, as I got older, even when things like that would happen or girls would give me attention, I would just feel like they were teasing me. I would feel like they were fascinated by my weirdness and just wanted to get a reaction out of me, not that they were really interested in me. And then I remember another thing too that happened. This was while I was still in school. This one girl, she sat right in front of me, right? And out of nowhere, she starts rubbing her foot on my leg. Like, you know how, if you ever seen it in a movie, how like a man and a woman be sitting at a table and then the girl just start like rubbing his leg with her foot. She was doing that. And you could interpret that as a choosing signal, right? But remember, I'm traumatized now because of what happened in middle school. So, and the thing was, she was the exact same kind of girl. She was the exact same kind of, like, not super pretty or anything like that, but she was like one of those like I don't want to say slutty, but she was one of those like very somewhat overtly sexual for her age type of ghetto project girls. And so I thought, okay, this is just like what happened in middle school. This girl, she just trying to tease me. So I really legitimately didn't think anything of it. And now looking back, I could have been right. But it's funny because I think, what if I was wrong? Right? Like, if I was wrong, it's hilarious how goddamn traumatized I was to where a girl rubbing her foot on my leg and looking at me in my eyes seductively. I mean, she was giving me them, I'm trying to fuck you niggas. And I'm like, nope, not real. Nope. This isn't happening. She's teasing me. She's making fun of me. In fact, if you guys have ever seen Carrie, you know, the movie that was based on the book by Stephen King about the girl who was unpopular and weird. Everybody made fun of her, and then she got psychic powers and killed everybody. But there's a part in the movie where the popular, like one of the most popular male or boys in the school asked her out, and he was doing it to try to be nice to her. It wasn't done out of maliciousness, but he wasn't really into her either. And when he started trying to ask her out, she gave him the cold shoulder. And you would think that she would have been like ecstatic about this guy giving her attention. But in her mind, she felt like, oh, he's just trying to make fun of me. He's trying to tease me. That's how I felt when girls would give me attention in school. I had that same sort of defensive wall put up because I was so used to people picking on me, and because I was just, again, I was a weird motherfucker. So I thought that any sort of attention I got from girls had to be a tease. And I took that with me into my adulthood. And I want to say this too, because I remember I was on R9K. I'll say this real quick. There was a guy who said something that I think is relevant to these stories. And he was like, I think he was a black guy. And he was talking about how he kind of transitioned from, you know, being like a lot of us, being completely unsuccessful with women, to putting himself out there more and realizing that, you know, he actually had some bitch getting potential. And one of the things he said that stood out to me was like, because he was talking to somebody else in the thread who was like asking him for advice. And he said, you got to leave that high school shit in the past. Like all the bad shit that happened to you, and like you gotta leave that shit in the past. And I think what he said was very wise. I think it was very true, because I think that's one of the things that I still suffer with, is that the shit that happened to me in high school in regards to these situations where I felt like these girls were teasing me, I never got rid of that baggage to this day. I never got rid of that. Like it hangs with me to to this day. And I've never felt the need to address it because, again, I'm Mr. MGTOW, don't need no bitch. I don't need no, right? So I never had the need to address it. But I think there really is some legitimate trauma there. Maybe trauma is too serious of a word, but there's like some mental scars there where I don't, where even when I get attention from girls, I find ways to disregard it. I find ways to believe that it can't be what it is. And so going into these next stories that happened into my adulthood, it made sense why I felt the way that I did. That's why I had to tell these old stories first, because I think that's where a lot of my mindset comes from. So here's another story, right? So this happened, and I think I've told this one before. This is probably one of the worst. So this happened when I was going to get my GED, right? So I went to go get my GED when I was in my early 20s. So this happened when I was in my early 20s and shit. And so there was this one girl there, and she was light skinned. I wouldn't say she was like thick, but she was on her way. Like, she was at that point where if she had a baby, her body would probably just explode into like porn star thickness. Like, she was like one baby away from like certified, but she had a good body, right? The exact type of girl that I would think would never like me. So one day I came to class, right? And I was looking a little different. I had put because at this point I had got my ears pierced, right? And so I put my earrings in and I had a cap on. So my nappy ass head was covered up and my big ass forehead was covered up, right? So I remember she came to class late, and you know how when you can tell somebody is looking at you, but you not looking, like, you don't check to see, but you feel somebody looking at you? Because like when she came to class late, normally she sat beside me. This time she sat beside me one time, and then the other time she would sit like right behind me or something like that. But this time she sat in front of me in the front of the class facing towards me. Because she was late and there weren't any seats. It was a small ass class, right? And I just remember like feeling like somebody looking at me, bro. somebody is looking at me. But now at this point, I don't have the confidence that I have nowadays, right? So I'm not scanning the room to confirm, but I felt like she was looking at me. But again, girls don't like me, so I'm tripping. So I go outside when the class is over, or like between classes, right? And there was this like area, okay, like we would go out and stand in front of the building and everybody be talking and chilling and whatnot. But there was like a building that was maybe like a minute away or a small walk away where people would go to when it was raining, because there was a little thing overhead that would cover you up so you wouldn't get rained on. And so I was over there, and I was just kind of sitting down waiting for the next class to start. She came over there where I was at, and I remember she said, I just wanted to tell you, if you notice me looking at you, it's because I thought you looked so handsome today with your earrings, or something like that. I've got exactly how she said it, but she said something like, and then she was like, I'm unfiltered. I'm just saying what's on my mind. And I think I said something like, oh, thank you. I was like, oh, thank you. Oh my God. Like that was one of the worst ones for sure. That was one of the worst ones. And probably if I had to say, and I'll never know, but that one seemed like very high possibility that she was choosing to do, to go out of her way to come out to stare at me in class, to follow me where I was at outside, and then to straight up tell me that I looked handsome that day. I thought, yeah. But, and see, the thing was, I used to kind of kick myself over this one, but I remembered that part of the reason why I didn't do anything was that I remember in class, there was one day where she was FaceTiming somebody. It was a dude. And I'm not sure, but you know how you just kind of just pick up on context clues and whatnot. I thought that was her boyfriend that she was FaceTiming with on her phone. And I think when she complimented me, even though most guys would have been like, nigga, this bitch is choosing. I think the fact that I remembered or thought she had a boyfriend pretty much eliminated her as an option from my mind, because I don't play that shit. I don't get involved in that whole cheating and all that. Now, she might have just broken up with her boyfriend. I don't know. But if you want me to talk to you, you do not reveal in any way that you got a boyfriend or had a boy, because I don't play that shit. And so I think that's part of the reason why I didn't even consider what she did as choosing, because in my mind she had a boyfriend based off what I saw when she was FaceTiming this dude in class. So here's another one. Here's another bad one too. All right, so this time, this was like later. This was a bit later. Hold up. When was this? I think this might have been when I was getting my GED too. Cause yeah, it was in a class, but I was an adult. Okay. So this was a different class though, and this might have been like a year later or some shit. And it was a different girl. So again, like early 20s, getting my GED and shit. There was this girl who, in fact, let me back up some. We were doing a paper, and everybody got started, and we had to type it on the computer. And I'm gone, right? Like I'm because I write music, so it came, like, writing just come easy to me. And I remember she said something like, damn, like he over there getting it. And she said something like she wanted to work with me. But again, I'm like, whatever. Remember, girls don't like me. So she would say little things, like not a lot, but she would say little things every now and then like that to, I guess, sort of get my attention. But we never really interacted directly in class. It's like she would just comment on things that I would do, right? Because people just thought any little thing I did was fascinating. But there was one moment in particular, right? And this was when I came to class and I forgot to print something out, like some sort of assignment. So I told the teacher, and I was like, "Oh, I got to go to the printer downstairs to print my assignment out so I can give it to you." And he was like, "Okay." And then she was like, "Oh, I got to go to the printer too." And I mean, dude, traumatized me. And the thing was, I never got a good look at her because I was so much in my own zone. But I could tell, like, out the corner of my eye, like, she was like, at least I, right? Like, definitely fuckable. So that wasn't the issue. But basically, based on the positioning of our where we were at in class, she ended up leaving first. So I'm behind her. She goes to the right, and then I go to the left. And I remember as I'm walking, one of the girls in the classroom said, "He went the other way." And I thought that was so funny because she picked up on what was happening. And this is my speculation. Again, I'm not sure because I don't know anything about women, right? But based off of the fact that this girl was already trying to get my attention by saying things about me in class, I think what she was trying to do, if she was choosing, I think what she was trying to do, she saw an opportunity to be alone with me. If he's going to the printer, I'll go to, and then they'll give us a chance to talk. And again, like, I can't even really put into words why I did what I did. I can't even really properly explain it, because I'm not going to sit here and say like I didn't have that thought in my mind of what she was doing. But again, I think that there was just it's the trauma. It's the trauma of disbelief that a girl that I like could like me. And so it's like, instead of engaging and dealing with it directly, I just avoid it. And then on top of that, again, I don't care anyway. I don't need it. I'm okay. Like, so it's like if I was desperate for it, if I was desperate or I was thirsty for a girlfriend, maybe I would have went for it despite the trauma and the lack of confidence. And maybe if I had the confidence, but let's say I wasn't in like this MGTOW mode, then definitely that would have been the right. That would have been like the perfect opportunity. But because as I look back at these moments, I'm trying to get into my headspace and what I was thinking as it happened. And this one in particular, is probably one of the strangest, to be honest. Because, like I said, I can't act like I didn't know what was going on. All I can say is that I think it was the combination of being in that MGTOW mindset of not caring. And in fact, I think that explains a lot, because the thing is, when you've kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? When you've accepted dying a virgin, when you've accepted and resigned yourself to a life of singlehood, it's like your body and your mind are not primed to react in the moment properly to these signals. It's kind of like, imagine if you're fighting and you resign yourself to getting hit. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna get hit. And you've accepted that you're gonna get hit. Then as the punches come, you're not gonna be reflexively able to dodge and maneuver around them. Your body and mind has to be engaged and on point and in tune for the goal of evading the punches. You got to be like, you're anticipating and you're ready for it. I think as I look back, I think with a lot of these moments where I didn't say or do anything, despite what a lot of guys would consider to be obvious choosing signals, I think part of the problem, other than a general lack of confidence due to not having any experience with women, I think a big part of it was that because I had accepted and resigned myself to a life of being single, I had accepted and become okay with being a virgin. My body, my mind, my actions were not in tune with the signals that girls would get. Like, I wasn't like, all right, a guy who's actively in the game looking to get bitches, he's out looking for choosing signals. He's looking for eye contact. He's looking for girls doing things like the whole proximity, placing themselves in your. He's looking for that. His body, his everything is primed to recognize and react to girls doing these things. Me, I'm the opposite, because in a sense, I've accepted death. I'm a dead man walking when it comes to sex and relationships. I've accepted that it's not gonna happen for me. And I'm okay with that. And so as these things happen, they happen when I don't expect them. So again, back to the fighting analogy, if you're not expecting the punches to come your way and you just resign yourself to get hit, you're going to get knocked out. And I think that's kind of why in situations like that, I didn't do anything, because I just resigned myself to a life of being single. I resigned myself to being a lifelong virgin, more or less. And I wasn't ready to react in the moment to these things. It happens. It always happened when I least expected it. And even then, the way girls do it, you still got to have some confidence to even believe, because it's not always going to be obvious and overt. But yeah, that was definitely, that's that's one of the worst ones, because it's the fact that the girl in the classroom, even she knew what was happening, and the fact that she commented on it, and then after that girl she never gave me any attention again. I think that was like, I hope that it wasn't embarrassing for her, because somebody in the classroom noticed, like, they saw it, they saw what was happening. And it's like they got it more so than I did. Like, I assumed, but when I assume, I lean towards, oh, she still don't like me. So when I assume, it's no good, because I'm going to just say I see it, but I'm more than likely wrong, because girls don't like me. Unless they're gorilla orc hoes that I don't like. But girls that I like don't like me. That's how I think. And that's funny, because now here's another one, right? This was a girl. This was a cashier girl. And this one was kind of fun, because this was when I was starting to like find my swag, so to speak. Like, because I was working out, and, you know, I was gaining some muscle. I was starting to look kind of good, you know what I'm saying? You know, start to look kind of handsome. And so this girl, she was like shorter than me. She was brown, really very average. It's an average black girl, but, you know, somebody that I would mind dating or having sex with. Like, I thought she was okay, right? Like, okay, yeah, right? Not like the type of girl that I get super excited about. Not the type of girl that's like my preferred type. Just a girl that's okay. She alright. You know, I can work with that. But I remember what was weird about the situation was that, remember, she's a cashier girl, but I'm not in her line. I'm in the line of a guy that works there too. And so she leaves her post and she comes and gets in the line with me. And she's standing right beside me. And at first she starts talking to the guy, the male cashier. And they're having a bit of bants. And I'm just kind of in my own zone, because I'm not, you know, I'm just there trying to buy some snacks, right? And then I noticed there's a pause. And again, you know how when you feel somebody looking at you. And so I felt, now this is, I never looked directly at her, but she was standing right beside me, and out the corner of my eye, I thought that I saw her looking up at me. But I'm looking behind the male cashier. I'm looking past his head, right? So okay, the male cashier is in front of me and she's to my left. My gaze is between her and his head, basically. She's beside me and he's in front of me, and I'm looking like between them, like just looking at empty space, right? Trying to find something to look at. And what I see is her looking up at me, and I see him look at her and then look at me like, you don't see this bitch. And I thought this was funny because it reminded me of what happened in the last story, where somebody else is noticing what's happening, even if I don't quite get. Again, I'm assuming that it's not like it's happening, but not the way not in my favor. I'm overthinking it. She don't like me. Girls don't like me, right? And that's why this one kind of stands out, because I could barely see her, but I could see him good because he was right in front of me. And I remember during that little awkward pause where she was looking at me, I could tell he looked at her and then he looked at me like hold up, what's going on here? And but again, I'm telling you, the problem with these situations is that when you're not in the mode, when you're not in that hunter mode, and again, you resign yourself to walking the MGTOW monk path, you're not ready to react to shit as it happens. Because it's like when it happened, and that was it. She never really gave me any attention again after that. And if you look up videos of guys talking about girls giving choosing signals, they'll tell you if you don't get the hint, they'll just move on. They'll take that as a rejection. And so if you don't have time to think and ponder what if, you kind of really, the way choosing signals work, you kind of have to go out on a limb still. It's better than code approaching in terms of your odds of success. And here's why. Because women, one thing about women, they're not as naive or dumb as some guys think. They're not like as and I talked about this earlier when I said I don't think them giving choosing signals is always a subconscious thing. I think a lot of times it's something that they actively understand that they're doing, right? And so what I'm saying is this: girls know that guys will code approach them, talk to them with no evidence, with no indicators of interest from them to begin with. And that's fine when it's a guy that's polite or handsome, a guy that they like. But a lot of times we all know girls have to deal with unwanted advances from men. Sometimes girls just don't want to be bothered. It's something that we can't really understand because we don't have to deal with it. We don't have to deal with it as frequently as they do. It's kind of like if you get Jehovah's Witnesses knocking at your door like twice a year, you might, at that point, it's not even worth fussing about. But if they are coming to your door once a week, like it's a weekly thing, then yeah, you're gonna get to the point where you're complaining and you're upset. You're gonna be you're gonna get to that point where you're genuinely upset. Like, these motherfuckers need to leave me alone. And that's what girls experience. We don't quite get it because we don't go through it like they do. And so girls, they don't like dealing with unwanted attention from guys that they don't like, guys that aren't polite. And so part of their defense against that is understanding that they have to be careful how they give out attention to men. They know that, again, a guy would talk to them with no indicator of interest. But if they give a guy eye contact, even a glance, a guy can sit there and think, oh, babe, maybe that's a choosing signal. Or, you know, she let's say, for example, you in the store and she just happened to pick something up beside you. She needed something that you were standing beside. You might think, oh, proximity. She was trying to get close to me so I could talk to her. Let me go talk. Girls know how guys think. Girls are a lot more aware and smart in terms of like these subtle dating dynamics than guys might understand. And so the reason why choosing signals can be so effective in terms of figuring out if a girl likes you is because typically what a lot of girls will do, unless they're a tease or they're an attention whore, they're only going to give out attention even like little things to guys that they either feel comfortable with or guys that they like. And that's why choosing signals can be such a, that's why it can be such a good method of trying to figure out if a girl likes you. But even then, it's not 100%. So let me get to another one. So this is another. Oh God! Now this is one. this one. This was probably the most attractive girl that ever gave me choosing signals, and this was another cashier girl, right? And this happened. I think I was probably in like my mid-20s. I say about 24, 25ish, somewhere around there. And she was a light-skinned girl, and she was light-skinned, had a cute face, and the thing was, like, she was the kind of girl where I looked at her and I would look at a girl like that and think she would never like me. Again, girls don't like me. But the thing is, some of the other girls that I thought might have given me choosing signals, like, they weren't as attractive as she was. Like, this one was like definitely not. Right? I'm definitely tripping. But I started to notice it. When she made small talk with me about what I was buying when I was in the store. And of course, that's not a big deal or anything like that. But what stood out to me was that she said something about me to her coworker as I was leaving the store. I couldn't exactly pick up what she said, but it was something like, he is so polite, or so, he's so something. And I was like inside, I'm like, oh, she noticed me. Right? But again, girls don't like me, Mick, to all that shit. So I'm not thinking too much of it. After that, it seemed like she would always try to make small talk with me. And in particular, I remember one time I came into the store and it's like she just greeted me directly, like straight up, like she knew me. And I just kind of played it cool and was like, oh, what's up? And just kept it moving. But the interesting thing about this situation, I think, is that this was the first time I experienced, maybe not the first, but this was like the most significant example of a girl probably using the proximity choosing signal. And if you don't know, the proximity choosing signal is when a girl puts herself around you to make it easy for you to shoot your shot. It's like they're just trying to make it. It's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird one because it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how much do girls really know what they're doing and whatnot, right? And so you could say that, like, they understand that if they're not in a good position, a guy might not have a convenient way to talk to them. And you got to think, if a girl is working in a store, if she's at the cash register, that's not a good time to ask her out, especially if like other people are in line and stuff like that could be awkward, right? So what was weird about this situation was that I was in the store, and this happened twice. I remember this happened twice. I was in the store just trying to buy what I was trying to buy. And I noticed out of nowhere, she would just pop up and stand at the other side of the aisle and look like, I guess she was doing something. I won't looking that hard. But now the aisles in this store are very small. It's a smaller type store, not a big one. So the aisles are small. So she's only a few feet away. She's like a few feet away. If you've ever seen like those moments in like romantic comedies where like the guy's in the library and the girl is like just a few feet away, it kind of was like that, right? And I saw it happen. I'm like, oh, there she go. But girls don't like me, let me leave. And so I would just, right when she would park it, I would just go ahead and leave the aisle. And that happened twice. And then after that, she never gave me attention ever. After that, like, it was weird because, and this is why I think it could have probably been a choosing signal, or that she could have liked me, is because sometimes girls are just being friendly. And especially when you're talking about girls who are like, who work in service, like cashiers and waitresses and stuff like that. To an extent, it's their job to be friendly and whatnot. And so you can't just assume that they're giving you choosing signals because they're being friendly. They kind of got to go above and beyond a bit to really give you that impression. But the reason why I think maybe she was is because after what I believe she was doing, which was, again, the proximity choosing signal, putting herself in position to where I could easily ask her out, because basically it was just me and her on the aisle, and it was when the store was like really slow. So I could easily just stroll on over and started talking to her. After that, she never talked to me again. Like, never. It's like complete cold, like cold shoulder. No friendliness, no conversation, not commenting on what I was buying, no greeting. It was just like completely whatever, right? And so again, like guys usually say, if you don't accept, if you don't respond to their choosing signals, they're going to take that as a rejection. And so if she was just being friendly, why would she stop being friendly just because I didn't ask her out? You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think it's a possibility that she might have been choosing. A possible. Again, with all these cases, I really just don't know. But I think that's one of the ones that I gotta say, out of all the times like I got choosing signals or thought I was getting choosing signals from girls, that's probably the worst one that I missed. I think that's because she was the most attractive one, so obviously I would feel that way. But it was the fact that she put herself in my proximity. Like, when I think back to that moment, like I can still see it in my head. When I think back to that moment where I'm standing in the aisle looking for whatever I'm trying to buy, and then she comes and she's right there, and it was like, you ever seen the episode of Family Guy where Brian meets this new chick and she's trying to fuck him, but I forgot like what was wrong, but for some reason Brian just wasn't like, he wasn't trying to fuck, or it was something, I forgot the reason. But there was a scene where she was on the bed and she had like the cone things that traffic the traffic workers use to direct the cars and shit. And it's like she was trying to basically like legs open with the cones, like, come fuck me, motherfucker. Like, that moment was like the closest thing to that I've ever had. Like, it was like just, the floor was just paved with, in the video game, in modern video games, how they have like the breadcrumb feature or mechanic where it'll lead you directly to the objective. Dude, it was like a breadcrumb, like a golden trail, a golden light trail leading directly towards her. And I'm just like, nope. But that was, if any of them ever stung at all, that one for sure, because she was the most attractive, and like, she was the most attractive. She gave me what could be considered choosing signals, and she set up the proximity to make it easy for me to ask her out. Like, that's probably the worst, because with a lot of the other ones, there was something off about the situation, that I can justify why I didn't do anything. This was the one that I'm like, damn, And there were like some smaller ones too. I remember one time when I was in Walmart and I was leaving the store. There was this thick ebony. There was this thick ebony bitch walking in front of me as I'm leaving the store, and I could have sworn I seen her turn around and look at me. And if you ever seen that look, that that look that girls give guys in the movies, like that seductive look, it was that kind of look of like come hither. But girls don't like it. And it's like the more attractive they are, the worse it is, because it's easier for me to convince myself that I'm tripping. Because I can accept that ugly gorilla bitches orcs like me, but I can't accept that a girl that I like will like me back. There was another time too in Walmart where let me see. Oh yeah, I was walking, right? I was walking and there was a girl that was like coming towards me my way. So we're basically getting to the point where we're walking towards each other and we're gonna pass each other. I take a hard right because I have a habit of trying to avoid attractive girls whenever I can. Remember, I'm traumatized. So I take a hard right and I'm basically going through like the male clothing aisle where the male clothes are. And I basically, let me see, I take the right and now, let me see, how did I do it? I took a right into the male clothing area and then I moved, it was right then left. When I took that left, I took another left. I'm in the male clothing area now. When I take that next left, there she goes coming right past me. So think about it. We're about to pass each other. I take a right into the male clothing area. What that means, and this is an if. This is if this was her trying to put herself, because this is another choosing signal where girls put themselves in your path so that you can notice them. I remember there's a story by Sugar Ray Robinson, the boxer, how he met his wife. He said he was at the pool and there was a girl that would walk past him like again and again and again, right? So he just like, he's standing, I think he was like standing in front of the pool or something, and a girl walked past him. And he said, if she do it one more time, I'm going to push her in the water. And so she did it again and he pushed her in the water. And that's how he met his wife. And so that's one of the choosing signals that guys talk about, where a girl would just position themselves to make sure that you see them. And I think that's possibly what she was doing, because we were going to cross paths initially, but I took that right into the male clothing aisle. Now, as a girl, why are you going through the male clothing aisle, right? And then on top of that, she took the exact route to basically cut me off. So I dive deep into the male clothing aisle and then right, left, and there she goes. And she walked right past me. And I'm not sure if she looked at me as she passed by me, because it's been a while. But I remember that I just had that feeling of that bitch might have been choosing. But again, girls don't like me, so I'm not gonna do anything about it. And here's another one. This one kind of now the reason why I didn't do anything here makes perfect sense, right? So I went to the store and I was talking to the cashier lady, because I needed what do they call it? I needed a money order. And so I was talking to her about the money order. Right beside me, there was a young girl who was just staring at my ass. straight stare. And what made it weird was that she had already finished talking. Like, I don't know what she bought, but I think basically she was with her mom. And she looked like she could have been anywhere from like 15, 16, 7. I wasn't sure. But when a girl comes across as being like in that age range, you already know I'm not even like looking twice at that. But that's the vibe I was getting from seeing her out the corner of my eye. Like, oh, this girl probably like 15, 16, something like that. Especially since she looked like she was with her mom. But I'm talking to the cashier lady about the money order, and the girl and her mom, they were already done. The mom left and went to like the kiosk on the other side of the store. The girl was just still standing there looking at me. And I'm just doing my best to ignore her, basically. And then it gets to the point where her mom had to call her over there. So that was another point. But that's one where anytime where I feel like a girl is underage or is like a teenager or something like that, then I'm not even like, that's a whole different that's a whole different reasoning for not pursuing that, obviously. But that was one of the moments that kind of stood out to me. And I think, let me see, is there any more that comes to mind? You know, there have been a few. There have been a few, because, you know, the story I told you guys about on the MGTOW night walk vlog, about, you know, the situation that happened recently with the girl who was like commenting on seeing me running around the city. You guys know that, again, I go jogging a lot, and it's not unusual for people to comment on it. Oh, aren't you that guy that goes running all the time? How many miles do you run? This, that, and third. Like, it's not uncommon for people to talk to me about that. I don't know why they find it so fascinating that I run, but it is what it is. But I've noticed that quite a few girls, well, a few girls at least, have commented on that. In particular, the girl that I was talking about in the episode of the Nightwalk vlog where I was talking about, you know, MGTOW and all that. I guess the only thing about when she did is that she kept on, right? She ain't just keep it at one. She's been using that as an excuse to talk to me pretty much every time I see her. But she hasn't been the only one who's done that. I've noticed that a few other girls have done that too. At least like two or three other like cashier girls have been like, oh, aren't you that guy that goes running, that's running all the time? I'm like, yeah, this, that, and the third. But I think that's about it as far as like the major moments in my life where a girl was probably giving me choosing signals. But obviously, since I'm still single and a virgin, I never acted on it. But, you know, I'll say this for sure. My whole life, when I think back to all these situations I've been in, I'm a 30-year-old man now, and most of these situations happened throughout my 20s. Of course, the one recently happened like within like the last month or so, but most of these happened throughout my 20s and whatnot. Out of all of these times, only one girl ever really asked me out directly. And, you know, that's a story that I've told you guys plenty of times before. You know, the slutty girl who was dating my friend, and, you know, she asked for my number and contact information and shit like that. She was the only one that ever just continually escalated towards straight asking me out. Like, she started with the same choosing signals as the other girls. She started with just starting conversations with me as I'm buying stuff in line. And then it was every time I go to the store, she's seeking me out, talking to me. And then she took it to the next level when she gave me the arm touch. I never forget the arm touch, because that's when I knew, right? And then after that, it was straight up asking me out pretty much, or asking for my contact information. But as we all know, that situation, she was dating one of my friends, and I don't play that shit. So I didn't pull the trigger on that. But I say all that to say this. And one thing that I've seen a lot of these guys say, you know, whenever I've looked at these videos on choosing signals and shit, is that, you know, girls for the most part, they are just not going to approach men, at least not to the level of outright asking you out. Now it happens. It's happened to me. And you guys know how I feel about the whole it's a man's job and all that. Because the thing that I do know is that when guys, the more attractive a man is, the more successful he is, the more obvious girls are with their choosing signals and things like that. And some girls are going to be very, very direct. That's why I don't believe in this whole, oh, it's a man's job. I just think it's more so a matter of value and whatnot. I think that girls are comfortable using and relying on choosing signals because it's a way to get men's attention without taking risk. That's what people have to understand. It's like, it's the same way how it's easier to slide in a girl's DMs than it is to talk to her in real life when there are other people around and whatnot. It's a big difference. It's a lot easier and convenient for women to use choosing signals as opposed to just straight up going up to a guy and asking them out. But that doesn't mean that girls can't be aggressive. I think that when I look at my experiences, it lines up with my level of attractiveness. I've had some people say I'm a 4. I've gotten a 5. I personally think I'm at least I would rank myself as a 6 on my best, because especially not particularly facially, but I think because of my fitness level, goddamn, I got some big ass calf muscles. The calf muscles big. So I'm gonna give myself an extra point just for that. But I've gotten rated anywhere from a 4 to a 6, right? But never higher than that. I think 6 is as high as I'm willing to go. And I think 6 is basically, that's average. And I think my experiences line up with my attractiveness level, in that I think, and again, maybe these girls were choosing, maybe they weren't, maybe some were, maybe some weren't. Let's assume that some of them were, for the sake of argument. Again, it lines up with my level of attractiveness. I think that these girls probably saw me as like, okay, he's all right. Let me give him a choosing signal. If he says something, cool. If not, whatever. I think on their part, it was never a big deal. I think, because again, choosing signals are a low effort, low risk way of getting the attention of men. There's no skin off their back. They're not really taking a risk. They're not taking any sort of significant risk in this situation. So personally, I don't put too much thought into choosing signals. I think if you look at it like this, right? If you say women use choosing signals, men approach, hard approach, cold approach, whatever you want to call it, right? Cold approaching or direct approaching based off choosing signals is like fishing with a fishing rod. Choosing signals is like fishing with a net. I think girls just kind of throw choosing signals out and just see what happens. When you fish with a pole, you looking for something. You trying to get a big cat. You want the big catfish that you can hang up and take a picture of and gut and cook. Like you're specifically looking for something. You're fishing with a purpose. When you got a net, it's just like, you're going to toss that bitch out and just see what happens. Lobster, shrimp, catfish, bass, salmon, whatever. It's just whatever I get, that's what I get. And I'm going to sort boots, dead bodies, like whatever. And I think, honestly, I think that's how girls use choosing signals. I think they kind of just when it's easy. You got to think, because it's low risk, low effort. Just throw it out. If he bites, cool. If not, just move on. So I don't really look or think too much about these, but I think that what it says about me personally, when I look back at these experiences, depending on which girls were choosing and which weren't, because still we don't know. We'll never know, because I never responded to any of these situations. But I think based off of these experiences, what I can say is that I'm not attractive enough to where attractive girls are going to be direct with me. Cause I know that when the more attractive guys, they get girls being even more direct than what a lot of guys would believe and understand. Just look it up. Especially when you look at like celebrities and shit like that. I mean, girls just be throwing them pussy. But obviously these guys are on a whole different level. But I think the level that I'm on is basically one that's like, I'm attractive enough to get choosing signals, but not enough for girls to be direct. I think I'm just, if allegedly, I think girls might see me as just like, I remember there was a self-improvement dating coach called Player Supreme. And he will always talk about how, girls do the choosing and this, that, and the third. And one thing he said that I never forgot is that when it comes to girls, all you need is to get that initial, right? Like, which is basically saying, like, when a girl sees you and she's interested, don't mean she's gonna approach you, don't mean she's gonna give you choosing signals or anything, but it's just when they see you, there's an interest. It's like, what's up with this guy? I kind of like what I see. I think it's a possibility that some of those girls, they got that for me and just did a little bit, but based on my lack of confidence and based on my comfort and being content with being single and embracing being single, embracing being a virgin, I think these two things combined, the lack of experience and confidence and belief in myself in regards to my ability to attract women, as well as having resigned myself and embraced being single and a virgin, these things combine to always prevent me from making any sort of effort or responding to the choosing signals that I may or may not have been getting over the years. But now at 30, as I reflect back, the thing is, I don't regret having not responded to any of the choosing signals that I got. Because the fact is, here I am at 30, happier than I've ever been. The simple fact is, I made the decisions that I've made, and ultimately they led me to now to where I'm happy, and so that's why I don't try to get too caught up in the only thing I really wish I would have did more of is that I worked harder in terms of, making money and working on my music and being a content creator. That's really the only thing I truly regret, is the lack of effort and focus that I had towards my purpose, but as far as like girls and, not having responded to these situations where I was probably getting choosing signals, I really don't regret it. But I'll say this too. I think now I probably would have responded differently depending. Because remember on the last episode of the Nightwalk vlog, when I was talking about how I don't want it bad enough, and that's why I wouldn't put myself out there. But the one situation, when I look back, the one situation where I can look at and say, you know what, it was convenient enough to where I could have just went ahead and talked to her, is the one where the cashier girl had positioned herself right beside me on the aisle. I mean, that was like too convenient. And I think if I was in a situation like that now, it's probably a 50-50 chance that I may or may not respond to it. But again, I don't know, because it still requires you to push through that approach anxiety, and I guess it depends on what that situation would be like. I think the more stressful it is, the less likely I would be to respond to it or to do anything. But that's the only one that stands out the most to me. Because out of all of those situations, that one seemed like it would have been the most convenient. She was the most attractive one, and she was perfectly positioned for me to approach her and start talking to her. And we had already had short conversations before. With all the other ones, I could say, oh, the girl wasn't that attractive, or the situation wasn't ideal, or whatever was going on at the time. But I think that's the main takeaway from looking back at these moments is that, I don't regret having not responded to him, but I do think that now my confidence is so much high. Like, my self-esteem and confidence are so much higher. Cause really, most of these happen in my early and mid 20s. My mid 20s is when I really started to become very happy and self-loving. And from like 24, 25 and up, it's just been, uphill from there in terms of like my mentality, my self-esteem, and everything. And so I feel so much more better about myself. And I've also been in a lot of different social situations where I forced myself to interact with people, to stand up for myself, to speak up, to be assertive. So I feel a lot more. I mean, just look at the whole the Ballad of Kentrell Brown music video, right? I'm in the mall, like, talking to complete strangers, trying to get them involved with the music video and stuff, talking to girls, like cute girls and shit, easy. Right? Because when I have a compelling reason, it's easy. When I don't, it's hard. And so I think that it's obvious that I have the ability to talk to girls if I really want it bad enough. I've just never wanted it bad enough. But I think now, at the level I'm at now, I just think if I was in a situation where it was just too easy to pass up, the only difference between now and then is that now I probably would say something. But even then, it's more like, it's still 50-50. It's still 50-50. As opposed to back then where there was just no chance in hell I would have ever responded to any of these situations. But those were the pretty much all the times or the most significant times that I've gotten choosing signals, or thought I did, allegedly got choosing signals throughout my life. I mean, dude, just the fact that I still say allegedly shows you that, and I think that's what's kind of fascinating about me as a person, is that despite the confidence that I have in myself nowadays, my self-esteem, I'm an optimistic, positive person. The lack of belief that I have in myself in regards to women is really, it's kind of worrying, to be honest. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was just so content with being single, because that really explains it. So if you don't get that, it would be worrying. But even like when I look at it, it's like, damn, Like, I'm really fucked up in that, in as far as like my belief in that an attractive girl could like me. I mean, it's kind of, it's like, damn. like what happened to you? It's like, what, like, really, like, man, like, you're so positive and optimistic. You love yourself and you love life, but you don't feel like attractive girls can like you. Like, that's some real shit. Like, I'm looking at myself like, damn, like I'm not faking the funk here. Like, I really have like this absolute deficit in belief in myself when it comes to bitches. It's crazy when you consider how otherwise positive and optimistic I am. But I guess that's a story for another day. You know, but here we are, 30 years old, still single, still a virgin. I think moving forward, I'm probably going to do the exact same thing that I've always done, though, because again, it's just. And I think this is going to be another topic, just to kind of end this off. This is going to be a topic for another time, but I think it's important. It's like, once you get to the point where you're just comfortable with being single and it's hard. It's hard to play the game, and I think that's a big reason why. Other than the trauma. And the lack of confidence that I have in regards to women, it's just, I'm just too comfortable with being single. I'm too comfortable with being a virgin to, to push myself to respond to these situations. But, I'll continue to just keep an eye out and pay attention to how girls respond to me. Because definitely now I don't have the excuse of ignorance or being naive to how girls try to get the attention of men. So I'm gonna just at least try to pay attention and pay closer attention to how girls are responding to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little talk. And yeah. Hello, people. So we are back. Oh, it's a little humid in here. Shirts off, baby. So this is the thread of the day. I believe I got this from R9K. So let's get into this. So I think there was a quote unquote girl who made this thread, and there's a comic there. Let's get a closer look at it. So the comic says, it's a girl talking to a guy. Your hair looks nice. Did you go to a barbershop? No, but it looks different. I wore a hat. The test was pretty hard, huh? I guess. And then it shows the guy alone playing video games. And so the comic is just expressing, I guess the idea of the comic is girls showing interest in guys and guys not realizing it or being receptive and then being angry and bitter later. So let's look at the OP here. So it says, unironically, why do moids do this? I hate that whole full weight moid shit. So many fucking times I took interest in the quiet guy only for them to do this and complain to their friends about how they don't have a girlfriend. And before kill yourself, tranny, sorry to burst your bubble, but I actually don't have or want an inside out hot dog poop wound between my legs. Okay, let's assume it was a girl who made this. So the first guy says, I got a compliment from a girl once, but I just said thanks and we never talked again. I don't know what was I supposed to do. So yeah, the whole theme of this thread is girls showing guys attention and them not realizing it or being receptive. Kind of in line with the main topic of choosing signals. So this guy says, I won't ask for tits, but you know you need proof before you can make some substantial claim. Then this guy says, I hate talking and have nothing to say. Then the guy under him says, a really cute girl at work asked me to hang out. I said, sure, sounds fun. Looked at her and she looked like she didn't even want to talk to me after asking. I just went in that store really because I wanted to say hi to her and she basically ignored me. It didn't feel good, but I was still trying to be nice. What? Asked me to hang out? What the hell was that? Was she teasing him? And then this guy says, so many fucking times I took interest. So fucking what that you took interest? Making casual conversation isn't a fucking hint to any man that you might fuck them. And you know what? He's right, but he's wrong. Like it's a hint if you know the whole choosing signal dynamic. But he's right in that you never really know. Because like I said before, plausible deniability. You know, like, I can't just assume that any girl who made a conversation with me was attracted to me or liked me. You know, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But certainly not every girl who was ever nice to me did so because she found me attractive and wanted me to make a move. So this guy says, if a guy had responded to this, then you'd be talking about how you were just being polite and friendly, and now that creep is chasing you thinking that you wanted to fuck. It's like that picture with Oscar, heads you win, tails I lose. And you have plausible deniability in either scenario. Exactly what I said. Now, maybe, hold up. I'm sorry, guys. There's a humongous roach on my wall. I'm going to kill him now. Yeah, bitch. Okay, I'm sorry. He was big. I think he came from outside, though. LOL, what? So what you're saying is you should continue being a depressed weirdo, shutting down potentially. Oh yeah, so this is the person responding to the first guy. So what you're saying is you should continue being a depressed weirdo, shutting down potentially good conversations because you'll be a creep if you actually responded. Like the girl in the image didn't initiate the conversation first. Mental illness. Well, I think that what he's saying is that a girl could give you a choosing signal or show interest in you. And then you try to escalate towards romance, intimacy, and sex. And then she's taken aback by that. And so it's like, the problem is that women are always in position to where they can play that game with you. They can give you a little crumb of attention and then see how you react to it. And they can be unreasonable in their response to you trying to escalate. Now, I do think that that's being a little bit overly pessimistic, you know, too much of a doomer minded person. But you know, it's something that could definitely happen. So this guy says, this means, ooh, shut up, bitch. You're fat and ugly. I want a Stacy or nothing. You know what, though? Sometimes this is true, but now see, this is the thing, like, and I'm assuming it's a girl saying this, or maybe it's a troll, who knows? But this is the thing I always notice is that it's always the extremes with this particular argument. It's never, ooh, shut up, bitch. You're fat and ugly. I want a girl who's not fat. Or I want a girl who's at least decent looking. They always default to Stacy. They always default to Victoria's Secret models, porn stars, basically trying to create this narrative that incels or guys who have problems with women have standards that are just way too high, which I know 9 times out of 10 is simply not the case, you know. But, you know, this is similar to that Shy comic where it's a narrative to try to make the person out to be their own worst enemy, you know, taking them out of the position of being a victim or being someone who just might be in an unfortunate predicament. It's one thing if a guy is struggling to date or find girls that like him. It's another if he's struggling because he's only going for the cream of the cream of the cock. he's only going for the cream of the crop of women, the Stacy's, the hotties, the baddies, the shit, right? Because then you don't feel sorry for him. And I think that's why you always see this narrative pop up, which I've argued against plenty of times. And again, I think it's just a way to try to, it's just a way to try to undermine the general struggle of being a man, and the fact that nowadays it can be very difficult to get even a halfway decent looking girl. But she might just be fat and ugly. She might just be fat and ugly. I think there were a few times in my life where I got like choosing signals. Oh, for sure. There were at least I think when I was at work, there was one girl that was working there for a short while, and she was like fat, single mom. And, she wasn't flirting heavily, but she was making that kind of level of conversation with me. And, I was polite and friendly back, but had I liked her, that would have been the perfect position to escalate. But she was fat and a single mother. So this guy says, heavily bullied in early age years, where kids will ask questions about you and then use their information to make fun of you. After that, you learn to develop a thick skin and not answer people's questions. So this is the whole trauma thing where you go through these negative experiences as a child, and it has these negative, these long, ongoing negative effects on you mentally in regards to how you relate to other people. But definitely this is something that you need to overcome. I think all of us, because I've experienced, similar things when I was growing up. So, but I think that at some point you got to acknowledge it, reflect on it, process it, and then take action to move on. You can't allow these events from your childhood to continue to shape you into a lesser version of who you could potentially be now and into the future. So this guy says, this is not true. This girl has been chatting me up for months, initiating conversation and trying to talk to me. I asked her if she wants to hang out sometimes, and she turns me down. And see, sometimes the girl just might be friendly. I've also heard that some girls, they'll do shit like that just to know that the guy likes them. So it's like an ego boost. It's validation. Because sometimes you have guys like myself who are very good at being aloof. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm not an ugly dude. And so I feel like when I look back at some of the choosing signals I got, especially from some of the cute ones, I'm willing to bet at least one of them was just a girl who wanted the validation of knowing that I liked her. I'm willing to bet at least one of them was like that, where we're just like, who this guy? Like, he ain't giving me no attention. He ain't sweating me. Let me try to get him to sweat me. Like, that's some real shit. As a one-time incel, I can confirm I behaved like this to a very cute girl in high school, but she was out of my league. I had no idea she liked me. This is what autism and growing up with no girlfriend does to us. Just like, you start thinking, and that's why I don't like the whole leagues thing, because when you meet somebody that you might perceive to be more attractive than you, then you're not gonna really believe that they like you. You're not gonna take those choosing signals or IOIs to heart. And especially if you're like a late bloomer, where because some guys really don't have a good grasp on their own level of attractiveness. You might think you a 4 when you really a 6. You might think you a 7 when you really a 5. It happens. We guys, we don't always know because we don't get the consistent validation that women do when they look good. For us, we got to be like somewhat exceptionally attractive to really get that consistent validation. But I get people telling me all the time that I look good, and they're surprised that I'm still a virgin. But my track record is pure virginity, no hoes. So what am I supposed to think? But yeah, like that's why that whole leagues thing is it's dangerous, because you start thinking in terms of I deserve this or I can only get that. And then when something comes your way that's, you're attracted to, you feel like you're not good enough for it. And then this guy, he's replying to the first guy here. He says this: lots of bitches will string you along for attention. Girls really just want as much attention in exchange for as little sex as possible. For a woman, collecting simps is the ideal. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely real, bro. Like, some girls, they just want the validation of knowing that a guy likes, again, especially if you're a guy that catches their eye. Like, they could have a boyfriend, they could look at you and know, like, I'm not, like, he kinda alright, but I wouldn't escalate like that to him. But it's like they expect you to. Like, I don't know what it is, but I guess when you're a guy at a certain level of attractiveness, typically what happens, like, most men make the most of it. Right? Like, if you got any sort of attractive traits about yourself, more assertive men are going to make the most of that. And so I think women find it weird or unusual when they see a guy who's okay looking and he's not using it to try to leverage that to get her. And I think that's what causes that teasing phenomenon. And so this guy says, quiet guys don't know how to talk to women or most strangers in general. And some assume women being friendly or sociable is either just being friendly and not to be pursued as potential partners or some kind of trick. And then he's replying, best posting a thread. Sometimes this sort of thing happens as well. Just getting left hanging and wondering what you said or did that was wrong, making you turtle back inside yourself again. Bluntly said, but these guys are right. If you're trying to get with a guy who isn't social, you have to cut straight to your point while the two of you have time to talk. Say what you like about him and tell him you want to get a bite to eat someplace or go somewhere, whatever it is you want to do. Yes, if you really like a guy and you get the feeling that he might be autistic or introverted, shy, or aloof, mysterious, whatever, you might have to go take those extra steps, because we're not going to believe it. Like, and you know what? Some women would say, if you're not confident enough to make the first move or not confident enough to catch on to their signals or IOIs, then you're not the guy for them. Fine. Understandable. I accept it. Cool. We go our separate ways. But you got to remember, the theme of this thread is complaining about the antisocial or the introverted guy not catching on that the girl likes him. So if you're complaining about it, then that puts you in a position where you got to change something about your behavior, right? So I think that's one thing that girls got to understand. And it's one of those things where you can kind of scope out how people are. If you see a guy and he seems to fit that bill, you need to understand that you might have to push a little bit harder because he's just not going to believe that you're interested in him. You have to make it abundantly clear. Ask for his social, just ask for his social media or something like that. Just do that, This guy says, I did do this and I'll tell you why. I have Asperger's. I didn't know that they were interested in me until years later. And I don't know how to talk to people because I am not socialized very well. I don't know what the fuck to say to anyone because I am used to not talking to anyone. I try more now, but still, I'm never going to be fully socialized now at this age. Socializing and conversations with me will always lead nowhere because it is like talking to a child in some ways. Then there is low self-esteem. Someone giving you a compliment when you feel like it isn't deserved just makes you think they're lying, and it can come off as being patronizing. Self-hatred makes you closed off and makes you think you don't deserve anyone. Also, don't trust anyone. If you talk to a lonely, quiet guy what exactly are you expecting? They are too used to being alone and quiet. That's how they live. That's how they are. They are going to be socially underdeveloped unless they were not always like that and went cold one day all of a sudden because of some significant trauma that happened. But in such a case, they're still going to be hard to pry open. Either way, quiet men are going to take time and persistence and work, which no one is bothered to put in for a man. So why bother at all? And it's like you said, most women are just don't want to be bothered with that. Even if you explain it to them, I think they'll just end up getting the ick and saying, nah, I want a guy who's confident, a guy who's going to be aggressive and assertive. And that's completely understandable. But I think that's just the reality of it. I think guys who are lacking in those, positive experiences with women, especially more introverted guys, we are tough eggs to crack. That's for sure. Tough eggs to crack, man, for sure. Let me see. What's the next one here? Okay, so this one says, because they expect girls to not like them, which is true 99% of the time. That's spot on. Because they expect girls to not like them, which is true 99% of the time. And that's exactly how I think. My default is girls don't like, to this day, my default is just girls don't like me. If I see a ugly, busted gorilla, overweight, single mom, drooling, bonnet wearing, crusty neck, double, triple, quadruple chin, the beast, then yeah, maybe, but then I don't want that at all. Like that's the exact opposite of attractiveness to me, right? I mean, I might as well be looking at a garbage can, just being real. But if I see, the more attracted to a girl I am, the less I'm going to think she's attracted to me. And the problem is, once a girl crosses that threshold into being attractive to me, I can no longer believe that she's going to be attracted to me. And I think that's just likely to persist until I magically, or maybe I will, maybe I won't, but until I magically end up in a situation where I'm finally able to cross that line into intimacy with a girl that I find attractive, and especially one that I wouldn't have thought would be attracted to me. But like I said, he's right. They expect girls to not like that. And it's true. Most of the time it's true. And so it's like, you can't blame guys for feeling the way that they do. This guy says, this is just not true, at least for me. In my 24 years of life, no woman has ever started a conversation with me just to talk. It has always, without a doubt, been me who initiated everything. I would have noticed if anything else ever happened. Complain to their friends. I've never had any friends. Yeah, some guys just never got any attention whatsoever, I guess I should be thankful or grateful to what little attention I have gotten from girls. The fact that I could pull those memories out of my mind so readily during the previous segment, the main topic, shows that those moments, man, they stand out. Those moments stand out in my mind. Even though I wasn't able to capitalize on any of them, I've always kind of held on to them mentally, because it feels good getting positive attention from women of any sorts. And so this guy says a lot of them either aren't used to talking to people, especially the female strangers, and a lot of them have victim complexes that automatically rationalize any interaction that a female tries to engage in as hostile, or at the very least begrudgingly formalized. They've internalized the whole, she couldn't possibly be interested in me, she's just being polite or trying to get a reaction out of me, to the point that it's a subconscious reflex. Facts. I mean, look, that's why this is a great thread, because of posts like these, I mean, he's breaking it down perfectly. A lot of them have victim complexes that automatically rationalize any interaction that a female tries to engage in as hostile, or at the very least begrudgingly formalized. And I can remember, you ever heard about the whole thing of a girl coming to you and saying, oh, one of her friends likes you, and then the girl panics and is like, no, don't tell him that. right? Because I guess it's like a prank where it's like I'm gonna tell. It's like a prank where they tell the weird guy that a girl likes them, and it's a fucked up joke. It's a fucked up prank when you think about it, because it's almost like they're trying to sick the weirdo onto the girl by saying that she likes him, right? And so you think she likes me, and then you might start crushing on her and stalking her and try to talk to her. It's a cruel prank, for all parties involved. The girl that has to deal with the guy thinking that that the guy likes her, or then the guy. I mean, it's ugly. But I can remember that happening to me in 9th grade, and me being as savvy as I am, I remember she told me, like, I think I had my head I had my head in my arms on the desk, like not sleep but just resting. And then when she called me and told me, I lifted my head and listened, and I immediately scoped out the situation and put my head right back on the desk. Like, I already knew what it was, but when you go through shit like that, I mean, just it and you don't have anything to counter it. It's like you said, man, she couldn't possibly be interested in me. She's just being polite or trying to get a reaction out of me. That shit is heavily internalized. So this guy says, this board makes me despise other men sometimes. How hard it stinks with an eye contact and a smile. Or better yet, your shampoo answer is a great joke that would make her giggle if she's into you. Your hair looks nice. I shampooed it myself, no big deal. If she's into you, the answer would unironically score you a date. I think most of the times where I got choosing signals and shit was like, it was really years ago, and it's slowed down over the years, and I don't really know why. I don't think, like, I know I'm like 30 now, but I think I look the best I've really ever looked in my life. I'm in fantastic shape. I do better in terms of like dressing myself up and things like that. So I don't know if it's like a looks thing, but in more recent years, I don't really get like choosing signals or attention from, at least not from like attractive girls. I still get about the same from gorillas and older women and things like that. But I can remember the most recent example of an attractive girl, or at least like she was alright. Like, I ain't gonna say all this. She was alright. She was commenting on seeing me running around town, and I did a good job. I did a really good job holding a conversation with her. Like, I felt kind of proud of myself. And I think I'm not sure if I said this because it's been a few months, but I think that in the middle of the conversation, I had jokingly asked her, like, you should come with me sometime or something like that. And that was just, for me, that was probably the most assertive, direct flirtation I've ever done in my life. Right. And, but that whole situation never really went anywhere because, that one, I don't know what it was, bro. It's like that one conversation, I knocked it out of the park. And then just about every time I saw her after that, like, it was awkward. Like, I just wasn't able to replicate that level of wit and just being relaxed enough to respond the right way to what she was saying to me. Like, it just, I don't know. It just, I think it was one of those situations where when I first met her, I was like, she doesn't like me. No way. She doesn't like, then she starts talking to me, and I was able to do well the first time because I still didn't believe that she liked me. But when she kept trying to have conversation with me, it made me more and more nervous around her. And I wasn't able to really be as relaxed as I was that first time. But basically, I do think that at this point, I think I would be better at maintaining a conversation if a girl did talk to me. But it's one of those things where it's like when you're not in that mode of trying to date and things like that, it's hard to just snap into it because I'm so shut off from those games. I'm so shut off from, flirtation and escalating and trying to read signals and all that. It seemed like throughout my life, every time I ended up in a situation like that, I was never really ready for it. Then this guy says, Floyd has no social skills. Wow, woe is me. God rejected me. Fuck off, whore. And then this guy says, women do not speak to me ever. Okay, so we'll stop there. That was the thread of the day. And it's one of those things, man. It's one of those things where I think a lot of it just goes back to our upbringing and a general lack of success with women. It cripples us in a way. It leaves these lasting scars and traumas that we haven't really overcome. And so when we do end up sort of growing out of the unattractive person that we were or believed ourselves to be, we don't really know how to adjust our behaviors accordingly when we do end up in situations where girls might be interested in us. But I do think that like the story I just talked about previously, even though I started fumbling the bag in the later interactions, I'm still amazed that I was able to do so well in the first one. So I look at that as progress. I really just think that it's once it gets to that point where I feel like she might like me and whatnot, that's when the nervousness really starts to pile on and I'm more likely to overthink things. It's plain easier to talk to somebody that you see as just like a friend or something like that. But when you feel like there might be sex on the table or rejection or something like that, then it changes the dynamic totally. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And next we're going to have the comments. So stay tuned. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, but before we leave, we got to respond to some comments. So this was on the interview with Aaron on the Pink Pill Chronicles episode. Hellbreaker says, Marco, why don't you play a co-op or versus game with them for the mints? I like to hear what they think about the state of modern games too while you're at it, and the identity politics that now affects gaming and gaming communities, and how that impacts them personally being who they are or just their hobbies in general. We need part 2. I got into a long debate with, like, when I was setting all this up, I never ended up interviewing them, but we got into a long debate. We were talking about like Bridget and Guilty Gear and shit like that. In retrospect, I'm kind of glad I didn't do that one because I felt like that individual did not like me. But I'm still in contact with them, so I don't know, and they seem to be interested in doing like follow-ups and shit like that. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get more interactions with our friends Aaron, June, and Nicole. So on the interview with June, interview. Okay. Funny, I've got a friend doing trans talks at the same time you are. Trans take over, LOL. And I know the whole trans topic is kind of overdone in general, right? But I just wanted to, hear straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and, have a relaxed, civil, mature conversation about, some of the typical topics pertaining to these issues. And, looking back, it went very well. It went exactly as I thought it should. I think a lot of times when I see people set these things up, they're doing so with malicious intent. They're trying to embarrass somebody. They want to put somebody on the spot and they want to just prove their point and things like that. And of course you can disagree with each other, but I think that we were able to have this conversation and keep things civilized and friendly all throughout. And I think that's what I liked about it the most. It kind of shows that, people can come together and have opposing viewpoints on certain things and still talk about it in a civilized, mature way. And I think that whenever I do interviews with people, that's my goal. I don't want to be like Fresh and Fit where it's obvious that, they're taking these people just to put them on the spot and embarrass them and make fun of them and make them look stupid and shit. Like that's never my intent. I always try to keep things on a certain level of friendliness. So on the Nicole interview, Dark Wolverine said, seriously, nigga, you couldn't get an actual chick to hang out with you. We were all wondering how you do in real life situation with one. And then BT says, LOL, LMAO even. And Hellbreaker say, that's legit not the point of this at all. It's not. But look, the thing is, I'm actually trying to set up like a few interviews with vagina girls next time. But surprise, surprise, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder getting in contact with vagina girls. They were friendly, they were eager, they were responsive. That was the cool thing about setting this up. I made a thread looking for some like femcels or feminines for R9K. It got like 50 replies and some girls seem interested, but so far I haven't been able to get any confirmations or anybody that was like, yeah, definitely. Like I made one thread to find some trans individuals, and I had like 6, 7 interested, just like 6, 7, 8 probably really, and it was easy. And I'm trying now to just planning ahead to do like an interview with some girls from 4chan or R9K, but they're just harder to get a hold of, man. It's just they're not as open as our friends Nicole, June, and Aaron were. So on the I'm worried about iDubbbz video, Mark of Millie says iDubbbz showed a lot of maturity in his most recent videos addressing the hate. It's a shame to see so many immature people not recognizing emotional maturity, LOL. And then Ghostface 10 says emotional maturity, bruh. His wife got him whipped. There's no emotional maturity. It's all ideas drilled into his head by his wife. I'm not the one to use the word beta or cuck too often, but Ian has really become a beta cuck. Now see, the thing is, I'm not upset with him about the maturity addressing the hate. That was never that's not the point of the video. People change, hopefully for the better. But my concern is more so with his relationship. Now, some people like Ghostface are saying that these changes are directed or influenced directly from his wife, which is one thing. Now, if it's internal, cool. But again, that's not even the point that I was trying to make. When I look at him and I see his relationship, that's what worries me. If he wants to renounce his earlier content and his earlier views, look, cool. I don't give a fuck. But when I see somebody in I'm not gonna say like a toxic relationship, because it doesn't seem to be like overtly toxic, but it has a lot of the underlying signs of a relationship where the woman is running things and is going to lead the man to his eventual ruin. As Rollo Tomasi would say, death by 1,000 concessions. And that's what I see when I look at them. That's what the worry is about. Bravo for his maturity. Bravo for his growth. But we have way too many guys who are becoming successful content creators and then getting tangled up with the wrong type of women because they don't have an understanding of these dynamics. They don't know what the red flags look like. They just get so wrapped up in the first piece of good pussy that they can get, and they don't understand that it's based on their clout. It's based on their status and their money, not who they are. And so guys like that are easily controlled by women who are more savvy and know exactly what it is that they're doing to them. So in the same video, haha, what a story mark says, not only did she not take his last name, he took her last name. Destined to fail sooner in a few years, she takes half his assets. Same old story. That's where I'm putting my money. And that's what the whole video is about. Is that this, to me, this is a real issue because, I'm a guy who wants to be a successful content creator someday. And I look at these guys who make it, these guys who are successes, and I see a lot of them fall into the same old trap. These guys are obviously betas. And I say that with all due respect. I'm not saying it like you a bitch or that you're not a man of integrity and character. But when I say beta, it's, a lot of these guys are simply the type that were never very successful with women up until the point where they found success financially and were able to elevate their status to a whole different level. And guys like that are prime targets for pretty girls and Beckys and whatnot, because they are able to take advantage of the fact that these guys aren't used to having the quality of girl as they are. And so they sort of get, almost like charmed, like the charm spell in a video game, like Persona or something. And they get the hearts in their eyes, and, they can't really see reality for what it is. And I think that, I hate to say it, but guys in his position have to be a bit more guarded with the women that they deal with, and they got to be conscientious of potential predators. Fumi says in the same video, I know that feel. I hear people tell me I'm attractive and still don't believe them because of how it was for my whole life, and still is really like. And we just talked about that, in the TOD and the whole choosing single thing. You get to a point where you start to kind of grow into your body. Maybe you get fit, maybe you start eating better or something. And despite the physical changes, mentally, you still feel like that unattractive guy. Like, I know right now, like, I got quite the gym physique at the moment. I'm looking a little bloated because I ate some cake. I ate some cake and tendies earlier, but man, other than that, woo. But again, mentally, I still feel like the weird guy that girls don't like. And so on the Shy comic, Hellbreaker says, people will try to manipulate their way through all forms of talking points to get you to do what they want you to, not because it's altruistic or right for everyone. And the more I live, the more I notice how petty this can get. People who care about the right thing are a rare breed. Most of the time, a fear response to relate it to their personal gratification, mostly in relation for the present moment. And then it's either rationalized for their audience and or for their moral play pretend they have inside their head. And see, I look at this point here. People try to manipulate their way through all forms of talking points to get you to do what they want you to do, not because it's altruistic or right for everyone. And I see that a lot. Because, you know, with me, I always try to shy away from being seen as like an advice giver. I like to just look at certain dynamics and things and just express how I feel about them or give a unique take on it. Like, kind of like, I put out the video, I'm voting for Donald Trump, right? And see, I presented my points as to why, and it is what it is. I didn't say, oh, you guys vote for Donald Trump. Like, I'm not trying to sway or convince other people. I'm just telling you how I feel. But I'm not trying to control or dictate what you guys do with your vote or how you feel, things like that. You know, I'm just expressing myself. And I see a lot of like different debates and arguments online in the manosphere and things like that. And it's obvious that some guys just have a strong attachment to their position. Like, and to me sometimes, and I get it, but I just think, just like Hellbreaker is saying here, you know, it seems like they're trying way too hard to get you to align yourself with their belief system. You know, I can live with presenting what I believe and then you guys not necessarily agreeing with it or deciding to take a different approach or something like that. Kind of like when I did the video about who should pay on the first date. You know, I talked about why I don't think it makes sense for a guy to pay on the first date. But if you want to use that strategy, I'm not going to jump on your head about it. But yeah, I think that, you know, sometimes people just are desperate to find a way to get people to, you know, basically align themselves with their way of thinking, as opposed to just accepting that, you know, I have my own way, they have theirs. Kind of like what somebody told me before. They said, what I like about you, Chad Marco, is that you're a live and let live motherfucker. And that's so true. And so Red Z05 FB says on the Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight video, being a fan of both fighters, I wanted to see a classic back and forth, but instead we got a complete annihilation. If a rematch happens at 154, EJ better be on some next level shit, because it was depressing seeing him get worked up like that. He got his ass whooped. He got his ass beat. And just recently, they activated the rematch clause. So the fight is definitely going to happen. Now, I think that Bud Crawford wins again. I just don't think there's enough time between the first fight and the second. If it goes as planned, because Errol wants to fight again by the end of the year, which I said in the video, I don't think that's a good idea. Oh, excuse me. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that if Errol was to have any chance, what I would suggest if I was in his camp would be to first rest, look at the match, figure out what you were doing wrong. And really the thing is, what a lot of people pointed out was that Errol Spence doesn't have great defense, and he's always dependent on sort of bullying and taking advantage of his size and strength, to overwhelm his opponents with pressure. And that's just not going to work on Terrence, because Terrence is just straight up, he's a better boxer and he's stronger than Errol. So Errol can't bully him in any way, shape, or form. So it seems like the thing of note in terms of what he's lacking that he needs to beat Crawford is better defense. But the thing about that, it can be difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, but he can learn. You can make adjustments. But the thing is, it's going to be hard to try to learn these things and whatnot in your camp and then apply them in your next fight, the big fight, the fight. It's kind of like in the anime Ashita Nojo, when Rikishi was preparing to fight Joe Yabuki. Rikishi was Joe's first rival. Rikishi one had to lose a lot of weight, and so he was just, oh man, he was like a skeleton basically. So one, he had to get used to fighting at a lower weight, but he also had developed a plan to beat Joe Yabuki, which was to use basically the uppercut. Like he was working on perfecting his uppercut to counter Joe Yabuki. So before he had the big fight with Joe Yabuki, he had a in-between fight where one, he got used to the new weight, and two, he was able to try to implement his new uppercut attack into his offense in a real fight. Then he fought Joe Yabuki. Even in an anime, you see how it's supposed to be done. So what I'm saying is, long story short, Arrow needs to take this time to learn some new tricks, maybe defense, offense, whatever the case may be. But he needs a fight in between to make sure that he can actually implement these strategies when it matters most. So on the Solitude video, Eric Williams says, we had an aux and smoke session in the car and I was feeling the vibe. I started out slow, played oldies like Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Sade, The Five Heartbeats. Then I slid some old Japanese city pop up their ass crack, and before they even noticed, and they were actually vibing to it. Keep in mind, these are what you would call stereotypical hood ninjas, so these aren't the most open-minded people, lol. I get what you mean by having to enjoy certain stuff on your own, especially the nerdy, obscure stuff, but sometimes people can surprise if you give them a chance, as long as the timing is right. Let's get that robot R9K3, my boy. And you know what? He's right. You know, sometimes people will be feeling what you play or what you bring up that they might not have been expecting. I can give you, look, I'll give you two examples. One where it worked, one where it didn't. And I know, like, in terms of music, I played like some old like disco or something like that, and my friend like just playing, but they already know how I get down, so I'm sure he wasn't surprised that I started playing this shit. We were in my room anyway, and he liked it. It was like he was vibing to the shit, right? But let me tell you another story, right? Now you guys know I like old Italian horror movies. And this, honestly, this was fucked up. This was fucked up what they did. I don't even hang with these guys no more, but because this was fucked up. But I met up with a friend and his cousin, and we were like, "Yo, let's have like a horror movie night." And so they picked the movie, and then I picked the movie, and I think they picked The Skeleton Key. I think that's what it's called. And you know, a solid horror movie or whatnot, cool. And so my pick was The Psychic, which is like an old 70s Italian horror movie, and it's one of those movies where it's a slow build up, right? It's old and it's a slow build up before things get going, right? And I remember we got like 15 minutes into the movie and I could tell like they started texting each other. I can only imagine what they were saying, but I would imagine it was, there's no way I'm gonna sit here and watch. It had to be something like that. But basically, after 15 minutes, they made up some excuse that they had to leave early. But you know me, I'm not retarded, so I could just read the vibe and tell that, you know, they weren't trying to sit through some boring old Italian horror movie, right? And you know what? I wasn't bothered by it. Fine, I get it. But that's an example of why I love Solitude so much. Because if I could only watch and do things according to what somebody else has to enjoy, I wouldn't be able to enjoy the things that I like. I would have never seen that movie if I had to base watching it on, okay, we all got to do this together. I was only able to, and that's one of my favorite horror movies. I love that movie. But again, how many of my homies are gonna really, sit and chill? And I'll say this too. This happened recently. So I met up with one of my old friends. I think it was Friday night. And I was like, yo, let's play Resident Evil 5. Like old times. Cause we had beaten it, we were like years ago, right? And he was like, yeah, cool. So he came over and I set everything up and all that. And we were playing. This dude is on his phone in the middle of we're playing Resident Evil 5 on veteran mode, right? And this guy would take any chance to check his phone. And I'm not sure, but I think he was probably texting his baby mama or some shit like that. And again, I get it. I'm not bothered by it because I know that when I want to do something and I want to do it the right way, I'm going to have to do it by myself. Because most of the people that I know or have known, it's hard to get them to do anything, damn near anything, and that I want to do, and actually focus in on it. And so that's just all I'm talking about when I made that video. It's just that, that's why I love solitude so much, because I don't got to worry about dealing with other people and whether or not they like or they're engaged in what I'm doing. I can just focus on it and I can enjoy it right by my motherfucking self. And so what Story Mart says on the same video, I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found a companion that was so companionable as solitude. Henry David Thoreau Walden. I probably fucked up that third name. You should read the book Walden. It's a bit hard to read, but I recommend it. Reading it changed my life when I was younger. But obviously, I relate to this quote. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found a companion that was so companionable and I feel the exact same way. And I love people. I always say this. I love people. You get it. Being around people is a different vibe, especially when you're on the same page. It's kind of like when I go to the gym. When there's people there, every now and then you have a positive interaction with other enthusiastic gym goers. Sometimes you see the attractive young ladies and they're, let's be honest, they're sexy little gym outfits and things like, those are the positives of being around people. Just seeing people work hard and, it's motivating. But then you got people getting in the way, using the machines that you want to use. And then, just taking up space and shit like that. Like, the best time at the gym for me is just the least amount of people in there, because that's when I can really just lose myself. That's the easiest way to lose myself. But that's just one example, though. I love people, but I have to have alone time. I have, to me, solitude is as much of a necessity as socializing, and solitude is definitely preferable. So Chad Peel says on the Shy comic, vulnerable narcissism is a very well documented phenomenon. Yeah, look, the point of that video, I'm not saying that it's not a real thing, right? I'm saying that, in it, amongst several points I made in that long video, one of the main things that I wanted to point out, though, was that the way that kid used ego and vanity to shame the other kid for his inaction when if it was ego and vanity that caused him to act, he would have never said anything. So why are you calling him out for ego and vanity when you wouldn't do it if he was doing what you wanted? See, I'm always trying to get to the bottom of the psychology and the mentality behind why we do what we do. And so the issue isn't even what he brought up. It's not about his ego. It's not about his vanity. It's not about narcissism. It's about the fact that you're not doing what I want you to do, because you can have all the narcissism in the world as long as you're doing what I want you to do. That's one of the main problems that I have with that comment. So Antog something says on the good dating advice from ADV, those guys' attitude is as if life's some video game. I lost weight. I have a job. Where the fuck is my girlfriend? Bro, they don't ask us out. It's our dirty duty, I'm assuming, and very often ungrateful work. Unfortunately, install Tinder, ask in person, do something about it. After at least a few dozens of rejections, then ask for advice. Yeah, you know, I've always said, he said it's our dirty and very often ungrateful work, unfortunately. And it is. You know, the fact is, most of the time, it's going to be left on our shoulders to do the approaching, to do the asking out and things like that. It's just simply unrealistic to expect. It's just simply unrealistic to expect women to approach you first. And he says, install Tinder, ask in person. After at least a few dozens of rejections, then ask for advice. Well, I think you could ask for advice before that. You probably should. Before you start just talking to girls randomly and shit like that. You probably need some sort of strategy and game plan. But I see what he's saying, though, is that, and you know, people got mad at me for making this thread one time. I made a thread on R9K where I was talking about how, like, you ever notice that most adult virgins never put much effort into trying to date and ask out girls, right? And I got a lot of shit for that within that thread, but I was just making a innocent observation. You know, I wasn't trying to shit on anybody, but I think it's absolutely true that a lot of guys who are virgins and are struggling in dating, I think there are a lot who really have not put in any sort of like significant effort. And it's like, it's kind of hard to really be sympathetic towards somebody when it comes to dating, when they haven't really put in any sort of like foundational work to know where they stand. You know, you're doing all this whining and complaining and asking questions, but you haven't even asked out 3 girls in your entire fucking life. Maybe start there. You know, but I'm not a whiner. I'm not a complainer. So this doesn't apply to me because I don't complain about the shit. I know what it is. So DG1 NR8 says on the same video, dating advice 4chan. It's I guess disappointed face. And then Chad Peel says, get dating advice from Reddit instead, LMAO. And then Meme Star says, Normie, I stand by the advice in that thread though. I think that guy was spitting. I think he took a very good approach to this kind of advice that he was giving. I know that it's 4chan, but even 4chan has its gems. And I think, and if I was gonna stand up and say it's time for me to start getting pussy, I would definitely incorporate some of these strategies and advice that guy was giving in that thread. So Bobby Biro says on the HPV related cancers on the rise snippet, you really think a girl will let you test her for STDs before sex? Hookup culture involves impulsive, lustful, heat of the moment sex. You will not get the opportunity to ask more often not, and even if you do, she will turn you down. A majority of the time, it's not worth the 10 to 20 minutes of fun. And Bobby is absolutely correct. One of the reasons why I believe I'm going to be a virgin for a long time is exactly this. There's no way in hell I'm having sex with anybody. I don't care if she claims to be a virgin. I'm not. You know what's funny? Someone on 4chan told this story about how they got herpes or something. They said they got it from a girl who claimed to be a virgin or some shit like that. So hell no. I don't care, man. I don't care if you're a nun. I don't care if you're a virgin or born again virgin. We gotta get tested. And me too. Like, even though I'm a virgin, I would say don't take my word for it. Like, let's get tested together. Like, are you really willing to gamble on your health and catch an incurable disease that you have to live with for the rest of your life for bad sex with me? Me and my little dick? You really like that, you stupid bitch? But the thing is, like Bobby says, hookup culture is impulsive and lustful. It's so fast. Who the hell is trying to stop to get tested just to have sex with somebody? Now certainly some people would, but I think that's definitely the minority. I think it's one of those things that it's really people don't want to think about it. And I think that's the unfortunate thing about it. It's just people prioritize their fun over their health. And I don't want to be like that. I always tell myself, Marco, if you ever meet a girl and things are escalating, please do the right thing. Insist that you both get tested. And to me, like, I'ma always stand on that. I hope that if ever I find myself in that situation, I do the right thing. Because it's the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. It's the healthy thing to do, but it's not what most people want to hear, but that's just the reality of it. And again, I always keep that in mind. If I ever get that opportunity, never forget, you have to insist that you get tested. But again, like, the reason why it's so hard is that part of like that's an investment move to go get tested together, because getting tested, it costs, you got to go to the hospital or the clinic, wherever they do the test at. It costs money. You gotta wait for the results. Like, it's an investment, and so you're doing all that for the potential of sex that you haven't even had yet. So you don't even know if the person is good in bed. Like, it's so much when people just want to get it out the way. I just want to know, can she back that thing up on a real nigga? She just want to know if you got that big dick thug nigga sex. And to have to go through all of that just to figure that out, I can completely understand why people don't want to. But it's the right thing to do. So on the fuck my wife, Adam22 failed the biggest shit test of his life video. 1-800 said his wife was literally making fun of him the whole interview. There was a part where he said, if you keep acting like that, I'm gonna have to Lil Kelpie you. I told you, man. Like, you can't. I'm sorry, bro. A girl cannot respect a man that allows other men to have. It's just not gonna work. And it's just like that dude said, you don't have to do that, Adam. You don't have to. You know what's funny? Whenever I see Adam22 now, when I see his no jumper shit on my X feed, I just think back to this shit. And I'm like, I can't even take this guy seriously as a figure in hip hop. I just can't even take him seriously anymore. Eric Williams says Adams22's marriage is not gonna make it. Agreed. I think in these times, whose marriage is safe? But damn, it's only a matter of time. Cunning Guitars 733 says, I think a fair point is that it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. Having money, beautiful wife, nice home, good car, etc. People fixate on how a person appears to look like on the outside whilst not focusing on what they might be feeling on the inside. I think that's a good point. I would have never expected Adam 22 to do something like this. I always saw him as kind of a pimp, you know? And, you know, but I guess the reality is you look past the tattoos and the rubbing elbows with all the rappers and things like that. When it comes right down to it, he's a cuck. He's a cuck, and probably blue-pilled because he got married. Right? I mean, that's a sign in of itself of a man that's I hate to say it, but that's a sign in of itself of a man that probably hasn't done enough research on marriage statistics and things like that. But you know, it is what it is. And so on the same video, No Scope Johnson 6 says, I think people are focusing in the wrong areas of the drama. The Hodge twins once said that they experienced situations in which a woman would break up with a shredded guy for a fat dude. It's also pretty common for a woman to leave a large member for a little one given the right circumstances. Dick is useful for limited situations. The dick part is a factor, but isn't as major as status, height, face, wealth, etc. So Adam 22 has universally more appeal than a dude with a huge dong. The problem is that Adam 22 is a subhuman cuck. That's the issue. Your own woman is washing her lips with another man's balls. There is no coming back from that. There is no saving face. This is reflective of his already trashy character, and no amount of wealth and success can overcome this bomb to his value as a man. Absolutely, though. You know, I can say he's a subhuman, but he's a cuck. He's a cuck, and that's the biggest issue here. You know, is that he's allowed something that he really he didn't have to allow. And, you know, it's going to, I believe, eventually bite him in the ass in terms of his relationship later down the line, in terms of the stability of it and her respect for him. But it's kind of funny, like, now looking back, enough time has passed to where this is kind of old news, and it's just like, damn, what was it even all worth it? Like what? You know, like, I know some people are talking like maybe he got like some sort of like financial gain out of it, but I'm just like really, after all that, what, like, I'm left with this profound sense that there's no way he feels good about this now that it's all over. He has to be feeling like unless he's just true to the cuck life to the core. You know, he has to be feeling like, damn, like that just wasn't worth it at all. Okay, so that was the Botcast episode 41. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, the next episode is going to be a great one, and it's going to be very embarrassing for me. The next episode is going to be about the Melly Monaco's Pineapple Show and my humiliating appearances up there, and we're going to be critiquing, and I have all the clips. I have all the clips, and we're going to be critiquing and reviewing every one of my humiliating rejections. So definitely look forward to that, and I will see you guys later. Johnny.